What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I guess Twitter changed their. Let's see.
Yeah, I think I might have seen something that Twitter lives. It's hard to stream live to Twitter now, unless you're just doing a space. So we may be without Twitter, fam. You may have to get onto YouTube for this. If that's the case, we're going to send a tweet out so everybody can join that way.
Let me see. Let's see what version of Twitter I have to. If it's the $7 one, I'll just bite the bullet and do it. But yeah, one hell of a start. Something's already broken. So.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of logistics behind this. I mean, once we're really into the thick of it, it's all about the content at the end of the day. if we're looking saying crazy stuff, no, we're not going to say crazy stuff because we're going to give you the best content we possibly can. But if certain things are going awry, we're now a 2-man team running this thing for the next 4 hours plus. I don't know how late into the night. I forget last year when it finished. So we're dealing through some stuff, but we're giving you the best content you can get in the Rockies community at least.
Let me see. Yeah.
So we're 15 minutes out from the draft starting, and things are maybe going to get rolling in terms of reports here pretty soon. We don't want to spoil stuff so much. As it pops up on the broadcast, we'll talk about it. But it's I don't know if we have anything to add to what we have analyzed in the past about what we're expecting to happen here. It's really up in the air right now.
Okay, we are now verified on Twitter. I bit the bullet.
So we can go live?
See, hopefully it makes
we
us
are officially famous.
Well, it's let's see. It's been a little difficult for some reason. How close are we to monetization?
To what?
Monetization. We've got to be so close. 5 million impressions in the last 3 months. We've got to be close to that.
I don't know. Do we usually put out the live stream links?
Yeah, we got to be reviewed first. Maybe later tonight. Hopefully they review us quickly. That's stupid.
So no, it can't go through Twitter though, right?
No, but we can.
Okay.
Wow. Are you tweeting out the link?
Yeah.
Elon ruining this beautiful app.
Yeah, weird little tweaks don't make any sense. All right. So now with that, I think I saw on YouTube there are maybe 4 people watching right now that we have in here. With that link going through Twitter, I'm sure a few more people are gonna hop in. If you're here, let us know in the chat. We're gonna again. If you did not listen to a spiel for a couple minutes at the beginning, we're gonna be here for 4 hours. So we're not gonna be totally engaged the entire time. We don't have a plan for 4 hours of talking. So if you guys are around, drop some comments. Let's talk about stuff. We're 13 minutes out now.
I was gonna say normally at the end of our actual podcast, we do just talk. So I think we'll be fine. We can talk about this for pretty long time.
It will work. I think come 11 Eastern though, I will be you guys do all the talking. And yes, let's go. We got Brian, Ryan, and Tony. We are so back, Tony. We are so back. We don't
need Twitter. No, I just paid for premium, but we don't need it.
We might be on Twitter later, but as of right now, we're not. But no, this is gonna be the best place to get this draft stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people are not gonna want to tune in past pick 3. That's what we're here for. Who do you want right now? Everyone drop in the chat, but Lewis, who do you want here in 25-30 minutes?
So I wanted Bazana the whole lead up to the draft, and then this week I kind of was Bazana's gonna go number 1, and then I look at it and Bazana no longer favored to go number 1. It's now Weatherhole. So I'm back on the Bazana. I had that false hope all week. I've kind of been tuning it down, and almost a little sad we won't get Bazana, but we're fully back on the Bazana train. How about you?
Yeah, Bazana I tuned out because I didn't think it was really possible. I'm still a little down on the idea that the Rockies will take a middle infielder at pick 3. I would love that personally. I'm just trying to think in their shoes and keep my expectations tempered. My number one at this point is Condon when you factor in like what I think they will do. But it comes down to him or Burns is what I think. But I definitely prefer Condon for that elite power. I mean, we saw like 8 home runs today from the Rockies, but we could use another stick like that in the system. We see a lot of we got votes for Condon, Bazana, Burns from Brian and Noah with the best choice of them all. Noah has requested that I am the pick at number 3. I still got it.
Burns, I think Burns will be the pick. It's the first graphic I made was a Burns graphic, so if that tells you anything.
I mean, if we're trying to present the objective view right now, what we're expecting, you can't expect the unexpected. So the expected is it goes Bazana, Condon, Burns. That's what a lot of people have predicted. I'm sure it's not going to go that way, but that seems very likely to happen. So I'd say everyone be fully braced. I'm sure some people are very, very happy about the thought of Chase Burns. Just brace yourselves that is probably the most likely pick at this point in time. Again, Condon's on the table. If he makes it to pick 3, strongly believe that'll be the pick. But the draft's crazy, so
yeah. Good and bad news. Good news is we're close to the draft. Bad news is Twitter Premium takes a couple days to confirm, so we won't be live on Twitter, but we'll be live on YouTube and Instagram. Maybe
Elon does not want to see us winning, but we're not.
Well, Elon just got $8 from me. I think Elon's winning.
Okay, he's winning, but we are officially losing. We're losing for the next 15, 20 minutes before this pick gets launched. And keep an eye on our. I don't know how the waiting room works on this thing. I know we got some people coming in, couple of special guests coming in at some point here pretty soon. One of them, is a legend in the Rockies Twitter community. We got Mr. Patrick Lyons. He should be here at some point in the next half hour or so. And then Kenneth Weber, K-Dub from Purple Row, one of our OGs. Like we did some pods with him like 2 years ago, and he had us on Purple Row, the Pebble Report. So it's been a long time coming for him to get back. I know he keeps up with the draft a lot. So they're going to hop in at some point early here, hopefully before the pick is announced. Would love to, all have us just sitting here stewing in our excitement as a group.
Yeah, Noah asked.
Rockies band together strong.
Verified. Well, story was we can't go live on Twitter anymore unless we're verified. So I was like, I'll just bite the bullet. And then it takes days for it to actually get verified. So,
but we've been verified in our hearts for a really long time. We're just making it official now.
It should be good by Thursday. So when you guys do the MLB pod, there you go. Should be back up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's crazy because we literally have been live streaming to Twitter. Like we did it less than a week.
Biggest live stream. Yeah, biggest live stream.
It was literally less than a week ago. We streamed. Twitter is bugging.
Yeah, Elon, a lot of bad investments. I don't know. The Cybertruck guys. You big fan of that, Tyler?
I've seen a couple in the last month. My first 2 Cybertrucks. They're pretty odd. They're about as odd as this new change to Twitter that we can't stream through Twitter. Shame.
You should
but it's
know.
It's not going to change anything.
Oh, that's true. We aren't. That's good. We don't have character limit. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. There's more than just live streaming.
We're gonna be. Yeah, that's gonna, especially for Noah. He is out there. Noah's out there, and that means
big
throw it
Jake
all in one tweet.
Big Jake Cave thing coming up after the All-Star break. Fun little thing we did.
Yeah, we never sleep. on fun ideas, especially like right now. Noah's in the thick of all the good ideas. Speaking of, we mentioned Noah a couple times. Speaking of, whenever this pick hits, we're guessing that's going to be around 5:30 Mountain Time, 7:30 Eastern. We're going to talk through the pick after the fact. 10-15 minutes after the pick is live, we're going to stream an interview that Noah did with Mr. Chuck Nasty. We've been I don't know if we explicitly said it out there on Twitter. I think there was a tweet of that, but we have an interview with Charlie Blackmon that Noah did. His draft story. It was not one of the more recent Rockies draftees, obviously. So it's not the same as the draft is today. But I think if there's any draft story in the Rockies organization that I wanted, 100% will be Charlie Blackmon.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Like that dude is a living, active legend. I mean, no, and yeah, he's not a guy that commonly gets like big interviews going.
Oh, there he is. I was just about to say. I know I was a little quiet. I had to hit the go live button on Instagram to go live on Instagram. So this is all new to me. This is Aaron stuff that normally I don't get to do.
Now our dudes on Instagram, they can see their new organization. We get it.
There you go. Then we have a special guest here. Let's see.
And yeah, Kobe.
Welcome to the show, Patrick Lyons. There you go.
Who's the special guest you're talking about?
We were talking about one Rockies legend that we're going to be featuring later in Charlie Blackmon, but I don't know who has more legend status, I should say, in the Rockies Twitter community. You're up there. You are up there, Patrick.
Far from it. No, no, far from it. You guys have been crushing it. I mean, Blake Street Banner is definitely, it's been your guys' year in 2024. Only one around doing the draft coverage here, looking at it from a Rockies perspective and just stepping up. Lewis crushing those graphics. I mean, they look so official, especially when you get all 4 games for all the affiliates and you see all the different color schemes and the players of the game. Come on, that looks that's sharp.
Crazy.
It's fun stuff. Yeah, I love it.
Just wait till you see what happens whenever the pick is announced. Lewis cooked something pretty nice up for those.
Well,
they look sharp. They look sharp.
The pick, if it's one of the 3 players I made the graphic of, if it's not, I have a secondary draft.
You're screwed.
There's a polished version that was for the first round. And then we've got the rest of the draft a little easier to cook up in a short amount of time. That a certain player, he's formatted that way. So it's almost a sign. Hopefully we don't jinx anything. We're not going to say who has the funny graphic design because nobody's ever going to know what we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We're not jinxing anything.
I mean, with the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft being not incredibly top heavy, but enough talent there where not really one player I think stands out. I think everyone has a favorite for a different reason, but no matter who gets selected at 3rd, unless something crazy happens where they really try to save a lot of money in order to make, pick 38 and 42 pop a little bit more, they go for the quantity over quality. But again, we would still almost have to wait and see if they were going to have that same approach that they did in 2022 when they maybe reached a little bit for Gabriel Hughes, but turned around and got Sterling Thompson, Jordan Beck, Ryan Ritter. Like all of those things ended up working out really well for them so far. So even still, after that 3rd pick, it's not, all said and done for. So, but hopefully they won't make us sweat it out. They'll get one of the top players on either of your boards and then still go and crush something at 38 and 42.
Yeah, you have pick 3. Like we're gonna leave the draft with a good player. We're gonna come out of this even in the later rounds 2 and 3. A lot of good picks there, a lot of good money there. So regardless of the pick at 3, we're still gonna have a great draft here, especially a lot of new top 30 prospects in the system.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Patrick, as an important theme for tonight. Everything is the full picture. That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. Like, I remember seeing Gabriel Hughes get picked and being completely shocked. And in retrospect, it kind of made some sense. It gave them the extra money. I know Jordan Beck was a little overslot. Jackson Cox was overslot. You don't really, maybe you don't get either of those guys if you don't take Gabriel Hughes it was pick 9, I think. So you have to look at everything full picture. It's never just the one pick. I wish it was that simple, but this draft is like a living, breathing, like ecosystem that it all is just interacting with itself. So
hey Patrick, I know you're like the quiz guy. You know, you got a lot of knowledge. This is like kind of like a trick question, but who had the highest signing bonus as a rookie draft pick?
Like just in the history of baseball?
In the history of baseball.
I think it was Paul Skeens last year.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So here's something. While you're looking that up, Lewis, I know it's not Paul Skeens. No, you know it's not? Okay.
It was some Boris client had a loophole to become a free agent.
So JD Drew then maybe?
So it was Matt White for $10.2 million to the Rays in 1998.
Wow. I remember. Real. I remember the Rays did something wacky where, it was the Rays. And around that time, the Diamondbacks, too, they did something with, I think it was like Travis Lee, where he went for some ungodly number. Maybe he even signed with the Phillies and they traded him. Something weird. Yeah, in 98, in that expansion year, there were a lot of odd stuff that happened. And that's also around the time when JD Drew doesn't sign with the Phillies, goes and plays like independent ball, I think with the St. Paul Saints, and then goes back in the draft again the next year, which is why Philadelphia Phillies fans hate JD Drew.
Yeah, there you go. Travis Lee was $10 million, so only like $400K less. So
okay,
I'm just wondering how, like, if that was like a contract they signed, was it a contract or a bonus that they got? Because
it was a loophole to become a free agent. I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't. Well, they didn't have the slot values like this. For a while, MLB, it was just basically like, here's what we recommend the value to be, sort of, so you wouldn't have those situations, right, where it would get that crazy. But players could sign for that much if teams, struck those deals, and they really basically worried about Boris clients and the like, kind of using that leverage to make the numbers go up really high, because for the draft, it's a pretty damn good bargain for teams to keep those numbers down. I mean, shoot, you think about like how they restructured minor league baseball, and you say, hey, it's nice. These minor league ball players are able to make a living wage now, and it's great. But there's less minor league baseball players, and there's the same amount of money that Major League Baseball is spending on the minor leagues as they were before. Now just less players get it, and they're able to make a livable wage, while there's a lot of other players who are getting paid $57 a week to play independent ball and say, hey, I'm a professional. I'm making $57. So, Major League Baseball has a way of getting what they want.
Well, I mean, that is the Matt White example, really good at showing what the open market could be like for all these guys. I mean, that was in the 90s, the late 90s. So
it's like
he did not have a great career to my recollection. Travis Lee did. Travis Lee had an okay career. But so here's what I was thinking of on earlier today. I go, wait a minute. You know what would be friggin' awesome if I was booking the draft? Imagine, forget Rob Manfred. He can come out and talk about how this is fantastic. And you say the first pick of the MLB draft, 2024 MLB draft is, hold on one second. He leaves. Paul Skeens comes out. He's starting the All-Star game. He just got drafted a year ago, 1-1 by the Pirates. Come on, that would be
awesome. A cool tradition. Like the 1-1 gets the next year 1-1. Like they get to say it. That'd be cool.
That would be so perfect, right? Or
it is kind of boring, man. Doing it, like
that's selling the game. That's selling the game. And even if you didn't have the 1-1 guy, which you should, you're right, that would be good. He might still be a minor leaguer. You could have like an all-star who gets into town early. You sort of have to force someone like, hey, you know how you were drafted in the 4th round? You got to show up to the draft and read
Just have the player selected come out. Like, don't even like announce it. Come out in their jersey and everything.
Within a hood.
Yeah.
And just, ladies and gentlemen, they drop it and they're like, it's who is this guy? Who I don't.
Fans at home, if you can't tell, fans, that is Mr. Paul Skeens. That would, they could definitely use to up the entertainment value. I mean, as like a nerd, this draft is the best thing ever, but it's pretty cut and dry, like standard, nothing out of the norm. They run a tight ship for sure, but it is there's nothing out of the box here.
Yeah, I think the NFL has the entertainment thing down. Like it's insane.
100%. And that's what, and to your point, Lewis, it's like the NFL and the NBA, they have the players there. And you would think that eventually, and maybe they'll get to this point eventually, but okay, the draft is no longer taking place during the College World Series. So let's get these guys here and in the building. And I know, because the baseball draft isn't always about just the best players being taken, right? It's the deals that get cut. You could just have all of them there, but just don't show them, just maybe the first 10 guys. And then you've got a pool, and then you could figure out, you could almost cycle in 10 guys at a time where you're like, okay, who's the Blue Jays? You think you're going to be probably drafting one of these two dudes. All right, bring them into the room just so it makes sure that no one's sitting around for 3 hours, and day 3, and you're like, wow, my stock has really fallen.
Yeah, I wonder when there's certain high school guys that show up, and I wonder when they agree to show up to the draft, because they don't know until you get a lot closer to the draft that they are going to be signing. I mean, we saw 5 minutes before, or not 5, a couple hours before the draft started, William Schmidt, arguably the top prep pitcher, he pulled his name out of the draft 2 hours right before it. So you never know when you're committed to Major League Baseball or not. So those guys, they could be there and then not even get picked for signability concerns. I'm sure that's never happened, never will happen, but I see Rob Manfred, guys.
Oh, Bobby Mans is out, huh? He's talking, getting booed.
Is this the pick or the announcement of on the clock?
It said they've been on the clock for a little bit, but this is probably the announcement to get started.
Start your engine.
This is a big pick because it was Bazana was the betting favorite all week, but today we saw JJ Weatherholt become a -200 favorite kind of out of nowhere. So underslot could be big here.
I mean, this is the pick to run the top of the first round. The way that the media's presented things, there's 2 options, but could be more than that. Who knows?
Could be. Yeah, this is a very interesting draft. As I said earlier, I'm not more excited about the pick 38 and pick 42 for the Rockies, but that just makes it all the more exciting for that big picture. And I don't know, Chase Burns. There, yeah. I said it. Just Chase Burns.
There you go. I was gonna say, I think it's hard to sell the MLB draft because you do have to wait a little bit for these guys. Maybe a guy like me, it's easy to sell because I watch Fresno Grizzlies. I love them. But for I think the common fan, you're gonna have to wait probably 2 to 3 years to really see these guys hit their stride.
And I think that Skeens is a good example of that, an extreme case. But guys' paths to the big leagues is definitely getting shorter and shorter. So that's certainly an improvement where you're not waiting as long to see those guys, and there's more minor league games, on the MLB Network, and they're doing a good job of getting that out there, and players are now selling themselves now more than ever, which I think is helpful. But you're right, that is as obvious disadvantage that the MLB draft has that the other ones don't, is that, wow, we just signed this guy, I can't wait to see him play in 4 years, right? And I think with the draft now going to only 20 rounds and you're just seeing a lot less high school players, the players need less development. So there are less high school guys that need 4 years. So now maybe it's only 2. And so those younger players are getting those opportunities a lot sooner.
We've also seen, they took away a whole level of the minor leagues a couple years ago.
Yeah.
ACL ends pretty quickly. So these guys, they are kind of being forced into tougher comp than before. But we'll see. Chase Dollander, we just drafted him last year. He's going to go to Hartford this week. And for the Rockies, that's kind of their pitching AAA. So, I think we could easily see him on the Rockies within a couple months probably.
When it seems like the new trend of the draft is if you're a high school or a college guy taken in the top 5, you're now kind of tracking for a year to the big leagues. All last year, Wyatt Langford was I think he was on the opening day roster.
He was postseason roster, right? Or was that
Dylan Cruz is in AAA. He's going to make it. He's going to debut this year. So whoever the Rockies pick, if you line up last year to this year, those first 3 guys should be in the big leagues within a year. Pitching's a little different unless you're Paul Skeens and have nothing to work on. You don't need to work on anything. Maybe Chase Burns takes a little extra time, but whoever the Rockies pick here, it could be very soon.
So I gotta. Would you It's weird with pitching because you don't really want your pitchers throwing a lot because the arm has mileage. What are you guys' thoughts on like? We see Sean Sullivan right now is in the ACL. Probably just like a load management thing. Would you like push your pitchers all the way up, or would you take it slowly, make sure their arm's okay?
I mean, I think with someone like Burns, and we've seen it with the Rockies, every guy after their draft year, they're kind of taking that late summer a little bit slower. So I think in that case, and with that context in mind, you probably don't push someone like Burns too fast. But
Yeah.
I think you could set next year at some point as a potential debut, even for him, if he hardly, if at all, pitches down the stretch this year. But I think generally, yeah, you want to take it a little slow.
Yeah, no, you do need to be cautious, and as much as the Pirates are letting Paul Skeens rip, they're considering that load management, right? That's why he hasn't been able to finish these no hitters because of just basically kind of limiting those innings, or at least the high pitch counts, right? Where you're doing the most damage or the most impact, so to speak. For someone like Chase Burns, if that's the guy, he threw 100 innings this year. That's plenty. I think Carl Kaufman had less than that when he was drafted, and they basically shut him down there for as soon as he was taken after the College World Series. So that very well could happen. And I've heard a lot of the prospect pundits say that Burns is a guy that probably doesn't need that much seasoning in the minors, and he could be a player that debuts at some point next season. Now, if he goes to the Rockies, is that still going to be true? I don't know. But the Rockies have definitely changed their organizational philosophy a lot. As you guys just said, boom, the yard goats are now essentially like the isotopes as far as utilizing AA as that spot where you're going to go ahead and promote players to the major leagues. And they no longer feel like, yeah, you got to get your teeth kicked in so you know what it's like pitching at altitude. Now they're like, you know what? Being tough doesn't mean you have to survive, being on the mountaintop. You can be tough in a different way and still be able to deal with that. It's just in a different environment. So, that really will be interesting to see what happens going forward.
Yeah, it's also important to remember this is the end of their season, the college baseball season, and we're only in the middle of like the MLB season. So they don't have much mileage left in the tank if they're a pitcher. You probably historically the Rockies have been like, let's draft a guy. You see like Mahoney last year, I think he had like 2 starts in the ACL, and then he started this year for the Grizzlies opening day starter, but just let him just not pitch because they just ended their season. And this is normally like, they're not pros yet. They're not acclimated to that type of season yet.
Yeah, you got to build. I mean, no one's really throwing 200 innings a year anymore, but you got to work up to, if you're going to get close to that, you got to work up to it. You can't go from, throwing on average 70 to 100 innings in a year to all of a sudden you throw 160. You probably have to do that in like 20 inning increments so that, 3 years after the draft, now, okay, you can bite off a full MLB workload as a starting pitcher. So
I would love to see what the conversations were like before all these like injuries came out. They were probably just like, yeah, let's let him throw 200 plus.
Let him eat. Let that thing run.
Let him eat. Yeah, let him finish the no-hitter.
Well, if you look at Dollander last year when he was drafted, 89 innings, and then taken by the Rockies, shut down. So that might answer that. Here's an off-the-wall question. If you're talking about like trivial, well, it's not trivial. It's just a quirky question. What's going to be more confusing? And actually, I think I have an answer, and I think you guys will agree. What's going to be more confusing if they draft another Chase, formerly from the University of Tennessee? You're going to have Chase Burns, Chase Dollander. Or if they go really outside of the box because they're looking to cut a deal later on and they draft Braden Montgomery when you already have Benny Montgomery. What's going to be more confusing? These are the hard-hitting questions people want to know. Tyler, Lewis, come on.
Think on that. Well, we are now getting this first pick coming in. This is crazy. Here we go.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for it to pop up on screen. I don't want to mess with the audio.
Little Jeff Passan has spoiled it, I think, for everybody. But
I'm glad I'm on the stream because I'm not looking at Twitter. This is
there
great.
You go.
But
so they go back to what the betting odds said before today, and they get Bazzana, my favorite player in this draft class. I think the best player. So
I think they homered on that pick as they go.
The man from down under goes out on top at number 1, Travis Bazzana. How about that?
He's one of those players that we've seen. There were a bunch of drive line videos that came out. I think he got to that level of true like zen as a baseball player where he understood all the tiny mechanics of it. Like, what do I need to do with my swing to cover the inner half fastball and still lift it and take it out? Like, he has, I think, such a perfect understanding of his own swing. And you never see guys come into the pros with that level of aptitude and the ability to hit 25, 30 home runs. So that's a special player. I think Rockies fans, no one was really thinking about him as an option. And, there it is.
So for the second time in 5 years, a player from Oregon State goes 1-1. Travis Bazzana in 2024, Adley Rutschman in 2019.
Who ends up the better player 20 years down the line? Who's the better player? That's going to be fun to watch. I think they're cut from the same cloth. We think of Adley Rutschman as a super polished, super, mental type of player. I think it's like very similar. So I think in terms of ceiling, those guys have, they're in the same boat, like a 6-win player. If you do that for a long time, you're not going to be you're not going to get snubbed from Cooperstown if you're a consistent 6-win player. So throwing Cooperstown out for the first time tonight. Keep a counter of Cooperstown Hall of Fame talk. But
I
love that.
I think Bazzana's a good example of you got to have power and hit tool. So I don't think he has the best power or best hit in the draft, but he does both so well. They just complement each other. And the best home run hitters normally aren't the powerful. It's the guys who give themselves the most chances. And I think he's just gonna rig.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It'll be fun to watch him play. So I think right now there's only been 10 position players from Australia. Maybe a couple more like that had a cup of coffee, but there's not a ton of position players. Australia is known a lot more for the pitchers too. So that's an interesting wrinkle. Actually, when the Rays came to town in the first series of the year against the Rockies, I caught up with Curtis Mead just a little bit. I didn't think to ask the Bazzana question, but I asked him everything else about Australia and his background and playing Australian rules football and everything like that. So it's kind of neat that there's more of those guys coming over here to play.
And someone like Bazzana, potentially the best player to come from the continent of Australia, could really trigger a youth movement out there. I'm sure it's already in motion, but that's exciting to grow the world of baseball. You don't think of Australia as a baseball region of the world. So
it's true. I know with the WBC, and the Czech Republic qualifying, I think even winning a game, they might have even qualified for the 2026 World Cup or World Baseball Classic. I can't remember exactly, but when you win those tournaments, MLB basically gives those countries money. So now they can have a school and then fund it. And it's hey, we can do a tournament now and really plant those seeds to get things going forward. And, Australia already has that base and they already have the Australian Baseball League. But, if Bazzana ends up becoming somewhat of a superstar and Curtis Mead continues to contribute and play well, maybe even make a Midsummer Classic once during his career. Now, all of a sudden, Australia, sure, it's this exotic place, but now all of a sudden people are going to have their eyes there a little bit more, and maybe people are more focused on it. Maybe their winter league, becomes a little bit more relevant. In fact, Ronald Acuna Jr. put himself on the map after playing there one winter. So that's going to be a really cool story to see how that goes.
And you think about those rugby teams that they create. Some of those athletes might start playing another sport a little bit.
Well, yeah, we've already seen that. The Chiefs signed a rugby star to be their return man this offseason. And
there's a
physical sport. Yeah.
Yeah. A couple questions that we have not addressed. Kobe asked rounds 1 and 2 plus the comp tonight. That is correct. So we're going up until round 3 tonight. First pick of round 3 is the first pick tomorrow. And then Grant, this kind of just is a good preface turning us back onto the draft. He says, who's it going to be? I think you see Travis Bazzana go. That means to me, we're going to get Chase Burns almost certainly. Many people thought that going into the draft. I think that about seals it. We'll see who comes in pick 2 though, right here. Yeah. This is a big one.
You guys are going to be taking this all the way to pick number 74. Do you know the relevance of pick 74 for the Los Angeles Angels?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Well, that's it. It was a yes or no question, so thank you.
Chase Burns.
See who the Reds take. Wow.
They already got Rhett Lauder last year.
Chase Burns. Dude,
Mr. Condon, come on down?
Wow.
first
That
shot
And
of the draft.
I'll say this because Kylie McDaniel had hit it in his, and who knows, they might not take Charlie Condon. He hit it in his mock draft that the Rockies might have been trying to overslot Condon to more or less chase off Cincinnati. That you signed Condon for $9.2 million, and he has some leverage, with his accolades this season. Cincinnati might say, hey, we want to get a guy like Chase Burns that you could sign for $8 million and save all that money. I don't want to, pat my own back. I've been hammering. I think Cincinnati is the underslot team this year, and everyone was mocking Condon there. I started to believe it myself at the end there, but who knows now? We might be seeing Charlie Condon, a Colorado Rocky.
This plays out pretty good for us because I think Condon was kind of the guy. I think most of the fans, if it was a hitter, Condon, I mean, he's probably one of the best hitters. I think Tyler says it all the time. Like Chris Bryant is almost kind of what it comes up to.
Yeah, that's been a common comp for sure. Another Charlie who can play the outfield from Georgia. I mean, that's interesting.
Charlie Blackmon jersey on right now.
and then yeah, didn't put this together. So as I said earlier, Rhett Lauder, taken last year with the Reds' first pick, also Wake Forest. Yet they didn't actually pitch together because Chase Burns had pitched with Chase Dollander last year at Tennessee before transferring, and now Hagen Smith underslot.
I mean, see, that's where my brain's kind of at now. Do the Rockies want to go under, or do they go over? That's what it comes down to.
I don't think it makes sense to go under. I think we need that top guy in the system. We have great depth in the system. I always say, like, I think we're missing that top dog, that top 20 prospect. I think Condon immediately becomes a top 20 prospect in baseball.
The thing that I'm curious about is what the conversation and relationship between the Rockies and Condon has been, because I really felt after the season that Condon had at Georgia that he was the 1-1 guy. And so if the Rockies, again, are thinking of maybe trying to go under slot a little bit, or if their right guy goes to them, great. Or Condon's not going to even be available. So sure, we'll do our diligence, throw out a couple texts, whatever goes into those, conversations. If they're not doing their homework, are they would they just take a guy that there's not a big connection and just say, hey, here's the number, boom. I guess we'll find out.
And I had sort of been piecing together in my head. I think if there was, they had the number 1 pick in this draft, they would be taking Condon. And so I think they did get their research in on him as a insurance policy. I think of those top, they probably got 10 guys that they know everything that they have done since the age of 12. So I think Condon falls into that they wanted to know everything about him just in case this scenario popped up. But you mentioned it. I think it comes down to the money, and it makes it maybe a Hagen Smith versus Charlie Condon discussion right now.
I mean, you want to talk about, like, all you need to know about Charlie Condon is I think he hit either the same or more home runs than Jack Caglianone, and Jack played 6 more games this season, and all we hear is Jack's 70 or 80 grade power. I mean, Condon has the power and has the hit tool, has a good feel for the zone. Like, I know not official yet, but I think it'd be a home run pick for us.
And I know that the Rockies did put in a decent amount of resources to go watch Caglianone in person, as well as Burns. And Burns is no longer available after getting selected just now by the Reds. Caglianone is. Yep. So
we haven't mentioned that name either. Could be that would be an interesting development. I know Patrick Saunders yesterday dropped the whole piece saying that the Rockies should really be kicking the tires on that. So we have this situation that nobody necessarily expected to come to fruition. We have it in front of us. Are we going to get once again, the curtain pulled out in front of us, and something's there that we didn't expect? This is a little crazy. I'm brimming right now with excitement.
The Reds fans wanted Charlie Condon. They were in love with him. I read some forums because I like to go through, read the room within the fan base because I feel like they know more than, of course, me. I'm not a Reds fan. They loved Condon. They want that hitter. They're big on these toolsy players. Who's the guy that just is hitting home runs left and right? The rookie. I forgot his name. But so much power in his game. Like, they can hit, and I think Condon would have been a scary addition into that lineup.
We had said earlier that there's like this compression within the first, I don't know, 6 or so picks where you maybe make the case that this guy is a little bit ahead of this other player. And so because of that, it might allow you to, Rockies might be able to get their guy and still go slightly under slot. Who is it? Tell us.
Mr.
Charlie Condon.
Mr. Condon.
Wow.
Home run pick.
I need you guys to talk through this for a sec. I'm gonna go ahead and dump some statistics on Twitter real quick.
Yeah. I feel like we've been talking about this pick for the last 5 minutes, like just kind of like working up to it, like unofficially, but now it's officially official. There's not really much to talk about. Like we needed a hitter in this lineup, a feared hitter. I told Tyler during the last podcast, when's the last time we had a hitter that you like intentionally walked when there's an open base on purpose to avoid, like avidly, like every single time? I can't remember. Maybe it was Nolan. Nolan was a great hitter. Look, people talk about position mattering. At the end of the day, you need a hit, and I know Charlie's defense isn't going to play in a premium spot, but Charlie Blackmon's doesn't either, and he's a great player.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, I think that does become a question as to where he can play, and you certainly don't want to be drafting a first baseman, right? Because that's where a guy ends up. And again, he has some options, so he might end up there. But if he becomes that stud, that everybody saw at the SEC, with Georgia, then okay, yeah, that can work out. That's obviously a much harder path, but I really can see how the Rockies just said, look, we've got to get the best player, and if a guy that a lot of people like, that 1-1 is going to be available to us, we've got to take that player and then figure out what we're doing later on. And again, is he going to be over slot? I think that's really the next question that we're going to have to find out. Is he going to get that right number? I don't necessarily think it'll be under slot. If so, it might be minimal, right? If you're his representation, you're going, I don't know if I want our guy to keep falling and falling, so maybe we'll take a little bit less for him to go a little bit early. I don't know what goes into the equation or in the thought process if you're an agency, but that's kind of the next phase of wondering what happened or what's going on behind the scenes as far as the signing bonus is concerned.
Yeah, I think Condon, sorry, Tyler, cut you off. I don't think he's as first baseman as Jack is. I think he can play the corner, third base a little better. Corner outfield, I think, will be a spot, though.
And you're jumping back on the signing bonus. I brought up Kylie McDaniel. He kind of hit on this as a possibility. He threw the number $9.2 million out there. So I'm gonna guess, somewhere between Rocky slot and 9.2. There's not much.
I'm gonna guess over slot. I'm gonna guess over slot.
Maybe a little bit over slot, and that's why Cincy wasn't willing to put their hook in the water there. I'm pumped, guys. I was hoping you said it, Lewis. I was really hoping for that bat that you don't have to really think about much. He's just going to be in there. People are going to be scared of him. The Rockies haven't had that since you coined Nolan Arenado. I think it's been a long time coming to get a guy like that in the system again. Yeah,
it's true. And even with $9 million roughly being what Condon's going to take home, the Rockies still have $8 million left to spend in this second largest bonus pool in the 2024 MLB draft. So there's still tons of options that are going to be available to them at 38 and 42. So now it's just waiting around and see what happens next.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily it doesn't bind them in any way. Like they still have their large slot values to come in a couple hours. Those values without any addition going to buy a really, really good player. So you mentioned it. They still have a lot of excitement ahead of them.
I don't know, Lewis, do you think we're going to be in the Matt White, Travis Lee range here with Charlie Condon? I mean, we could be getting Travis Lee kind of comps for Condon here? What are you talking about?
I think we'll be a little above that. Not above that, above the slot. Above that would be crazy.
We're going 10 point.
But I mean, I think there's a reason he wasn't at 3. I think Cincinnati. When's their next pick? Is it mid-second round? I don't know.
It's I think mid-40s. But
Yeah, so they probably want to save some money for that pick. That's my assumption, and pair two really good players up.
exactly.
Yeah, I think 51 is their next one because their competitive balance round is round B. Will come after the second round.
But K-Dub, thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to make sure all the excitement went down first. Well, honestly, I don't know if this shakes out any better or easier for Colorado, because I think that it was pretty clear that this was their preferred player in terms of ranking the best player available. I think that there's always the idea of what the needs are for the team, or who might have the best signability, but ultimately who they felt was the best player for them fell into their laps, so to speak. So I think it was kind of an easy slam dunk selection, and it fits kind of the Rockies' MO to a T, because this is a guy that's a bat first, corner, responsible defensively, but that's never going to be his calling card. And I think they've made it clear since Bill Schmidt joined, they like a lot of guys like that. And so now they're getting on the ground floor with one. So it's pretty interesting to see it all shake out the way it has. And I think that, they got their guy, in their opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up defense. I think the Rockies right now, we have like Doyle, Tovar, Romo's a great defender, should be up pretty soon. Like, I think defense, we got that covered. We got to get the bat on the ball. And I think this pick helps with that.
Yeah, I think that's a part of the system that we point to all of our, offensive prospects. And you still have some question marks about just how good some of those guys are going to be with the bat at the major league level. Are they going to be above average? And that's a pretty big sticking point for guys to become regulars is, are you above average offensively? And it's just tough to expect that out of anybody. So the more the merrier, really. And the Rockies lineup is been a cause of some struggles too. We talk about the pitching a lot, but the Rockies lineup has done them no favors since 2020, really. And this gives them a chance to really turn that around. And you still have a ton of great defensive players in the system, like you mentioned.
And the fun doesn't stop. We have two more picks in the 30s and 40s. Like, let's go.
And we also have a Charlie Condon graphic that I've been hearing a lot of buzz about that I can't wait to see eventually. But you know what? We don't know what's going to happen going forward. Obviously with a player's development. But if you're just looking at the pedigree, if you're looking at the resume, I mean, Charlie Condon might be one of, at the time of the draft, arguably the best draft pick they've ever had. You're talking about a guy who was the Golden Spikes Award winner this year, Dick Hauser Trophy winner, and the Bobby Bragan National Collegiate Slugger Award. So the dude swept across the board. I mean, I don't know what else he could have possibly done to not, show that he's the elite player that he is. So at least at the time of drafting, you can argue he has a better pedigree than Todd Helton, if he even has half the career of Todd Helton going forward, which I guess half the career of Todd Helton is like a full career of Brad Hawpe. I don't know what that math is on that. But even then, that's still a big success as far as baseball is concerned, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're getting a good big leaguer, I mean, for the Rockies, that'd be a welcome sight. They've had a lot of first rounders that have not yielded, even good big leaguers in several years. So if you feel confident that that's exactly what you're getting, I mean, that's going to be a completely new, tone for this club and something that could really help them propel into a new window.
Yeah, I almost feel like teams overthought this because I think 2 months ago, Condon was almost out of the picture for us. He was like guaranteed 1 or 2. I think he was like probably the best player on people's boards unanimously almost. And now we have him. I think a lot of people overthought this or negotiated with the money, but I think we got the best player we could have gotten.
Yeah, I think a lot of it came down to pitching need. Do you think if there's as big of a gap, I think, between the first and second class of pitchers and kind of the rest of the field like exists in this draft, do you think Chase Burns goes too? Or do you think the Reds wait a little bit? I think that there was a premium that was placed a little bit on Burns and to a degree Hagen Smith, especially within this top 5, top 10 really, but somebody out of the top 5 to go in and nab it. And, it's not surprising to see Cincinnati do it, but it's also it pushes against the grain because I think Condon and Bazzana were always kind of the clear top 2. And I think it was just divisive on who people felt was better or who was more deserving to be 1 overall, what have you. I think if it comes down to pure hit tool, I think that was the conversation started there with both of them, and that was the nice part about it. So it's interesting to see Cincinnati go a different direction, but again, I think it's just because top shelf pitching was kind of at a premium in this draft class too.
Yeah, I mean, someone like we saw with Paul Skeens, nobody expected him necessarily to go 1-1 until 20 minutes before the draft. That storyline really started circulating. But then he went 1-1, and I think it goes to your point, K-Dub, that when there's a pitcher that you feel really confident in becoming a top of the rotation guy, there's definitely a new premium on. I mean, there's always been a premium on guys like that. So
and you pair that with probably an underslot by a couple $100,000. I mean, you're probably going to get a better hitter than you were going to get in the second round now because you saved a couple $100K.
And speaking of this premium pitching, I mean, that top tier just got taken off the board.
Wow.
I was expecting Chicago that, they're sitting in the dumps right now.
They don't have a lottery pick next year. So
yeah, no lottery pick next year. But I was expecting a high school guy, Connor Griffin, Bryce Rayner, Hagen Smith. Though, I mean, again, the premium pitching. These guys, they might not come around every year. So you've got two in this class. Makes sense to jump all over that.
The White Sox have a legit pitching rotation in the minor leagues. Drew Thorpe, Noah Schultz, Jairo Iriarte, Kai Bush. Now you add in Hagen Smith. I mean, it's insane.
It's like you mentioned also with the volatility that's coming up with their draft pick next year. It's a safer pick when it comes to Hagen Smith.
Yeah.
I feel like, we jumped a little bit. Is anybody else surprised Kurtz goes 4? Because I'm a little surprised over that.
It's kind of a signature Oakland pick, though.
It is.
Save some money.
But it was a little curious because I feel like that one went off the beaten path a little bit. There's so much hyped about Caglianone's ability and potential upside, and it's really kind of the big boom or the really low bust. But to see Kurtz and Smith go over him is interesting, especially for a doldrums organization like Chicago is right now, where there is something to getting the fan base excited over a pick. And I don't know if Hagen Smith and the safety that comes with it is that exciting. And I get it, don't get me wrong. But Oakland fits into that same category. So it's kind of curious to see just how divisive somebody like Caglianone is right now.
Yeah, I think it is one of the most divisive profiles because you might have some teams that their model is purely driven on, plate discipline. That's a huge thing that they're looking for. And, if you look at the strikeout and walk numbers with him, you're like, his plate discipline's great, but I think he's running a 37% chase rate, which is pretty unparalleled for any top of the first round prospect we've seen in several years. Like most of these guys that are getting drafted tonight, they're in the low teens, late teens, low mid 20s. Like nobody's pushing 30% with the chase rate. So someone like Caglianone, teams might be feeling a little bit more of a downside potential to that pick. So might have something to do with him sliding, but still, to your point, that he's the most iconic player in this draft because of the two-way ability in college, the just super easy power. I'm surprised he's still up there.
Yeah, it makes hitting college hitting is really tough because these really elite hitters in college, pitchers aren't going to really pitch to them. We saw it with Cavs. Their walk rates are always going to be good. So it's really tough. Sometimes they come into A-ball and they start striking out. So you never really know with these college bats. But it's a lot more safer than maybe not recently, but high school bats.
No, I like that point too, because if you look at some of the pitches that Caglianone has hit, they're out of the zone because he's trying to make something happen because they're just throwing around him. I haven't seen any speculation or just any word of that Caglianone and his agent want him to be a two-way player. Now that hasn't come out. Could that have something to do with him slipping? But I don't know that he's slipping exactly. Could just be the teams that are drafting right now just aren't in on him. But maybe that's been part of the conversation for him to truly become Jack Tani, right, going forward. And the weird thing with Nick Kurtz too is this dude has never played summer collegiate ball. He has never hit in a wood bat league. So is that what he's a third round guy now all of a sudden? No, but it's just one of those interesting wrinkles that might give some organizations a pause. BAs are not one of those organizations that pause like that.
It's another risk in a pick that's a very safe pick. It's a very safe pick by Oakland, almost weirdly safe.
Yeah, there's not a ton of first base draft prospects that end up contributing at a high level in the majors just because of the productivity of first basemen in general, right? I was listening to something earlier this week, and it was like, yeah, Tristan Casas, had a really good year last year, but even still, he's not a superstar by any means. So, to get that high level when a guy's already backed into that corner, literally and figuratively, it's hard to get that kind of production out of him.
I mean, I think that points to like Oakland probably got a mega deal at pick 4, and you don't get that same mega deal with someone like Jack. And they might have been trying to run up more of a pretty penny at that spot, and now I don't know what you accept if you're Jack and his representation.
Yeah, I think Kurt's jumping up to 4 because most likely he was going to go behind Smith, Taglianone, and whoever just got drafted.
Whether
Yes. So he was going to be a back end of the top 10 pick, essentially, and it was essentially because you need to have just a bat only. So it's curious that Oakland jumped up, but that was the first thing that came to my head was saving some money by doing it.
And there goes Jack. We were talking about that.
So they do announce him as a two-way. It's interesting.
I think it's interesting. I think if you're looking at him as a two-way, I don't think you want him pitching. I think he injured his pitching arm too at the end of his last game. I just don't think it's like a reliever arm, which I would rather put all my focus on the bat.
I think if the bat gets there enough, then you have just, 97 that you can pull out from the left side every now and then, which is not a bad asset to have, but it's got to be the hitting first when it comes to him. But it's curious because you had Bryce Eldridge last year with the Giants, who was a pretty renowned two-way guy and in high school, and they immediately ditched the pitching side of it and go straight to the hitting. So it's hard to make any expectations. Really, the last time that I feel like somebody really entertained doing it two-way, especially at this high of the draft, was Brandon McKay. And it just didn't go well for Tampa Bay, unfortunately. A lot of it is just the injuries because the pitching was more developed than the hitting. But that's the scarcity, and that's what makes him divisive in the first place is you need a major leaguer out of this, one way or the other. And if you try to split your time, you don't get a productive major leaguer in a lottery pick, it sets you back as a franchise.
We were talking earlier about how minor leagues have shifted, and you completely gotten rid of the short season ball, and that was a place where Hunter Green went to ply his trade and sort of to learn. Okay, here's how I become a professional in the Pioneer League at Billings with the Billings Mustangs, and that's no longer an option to do that. So that makes it even that much harder to ply both of your trades there at a low A setting like that, if not, a complex league type situation. So it's just going to be so rare for any of us to get another Shohei Ohtani. I mean, unless Ohtani happens to come back and is only relieving, then maybe that opens up the door for okay, hold on now if we're lowering the bar to reliever and position player, now maybe we have something. But until that day, I don't know that we're ever really going to see another two-way player, because as Kenneth puts it, you have to have a lot of patience on both sides, and if one's taken off over the other, hey man, let's not hold him back because the other half of him is not performing well.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Jeff Passan just tweeted that he's expected to be a hitter only, despite being named during the draft as both.
Yeah, I mean Spencer Torkelson was named as a third baseman, and everybody knew that he hadn't played third base in the league. So,
who's doing the clerical work for the draft? Because someone's slipping up. Sure.
I think it's the team card, right? Is it when they submit?
Well, here's a question. So, speaking of the clerical work, is Condon third base. Let's talk about that. Is I don't know how much defensive footage you guys have seen on him. I haven't seen a ton. Looked fine, but again, I'm not there every day. I know last season, right before they pulled the plug on Montero at third base, it was he seems okay. Yeah, there's some issues, but maybe you could play that up. And then someone gets in my ear saying, okay, watch this, notice that. You just almost can't teach that, and there's certain lack of fluidity. So again, I know none of us are scouts, but do you think he can stay at third base? Does he have more value to the Rockies as a third baseman, completely nullifying the Ryan McMahon part of the equation?
not a scout. I'm just gonna add this little tidbit. I think at cores you get more batted balls, and I think defense is more important in the corner at cores. So that's just my tidbit.
And I got to see him play in the corner outfield a little bit last year. I haven't seen enough this year of what he's done. He was a redshirt freshman last year, so he was jumping out there, first collegiate experience. I mean, he's obviously not expected to be a great player. He looked competent, and he certainly has a good arm that can play out whichever corner he's playing, whether that's third, right, or left. So I think in that way, he's going to be competent out there. But third base we've seen with Rocky's third baseman in the past. We have a high standard. We also tried to see Eloise Montero there, and clearly that same level of precision wasn't there. So the standard is high at third base.
I think the better name to bring up in this discussion instead of Montero is Nolan Jones, because Nolan Jones has a bit of a defensive archetype that's similar to what Condon offers, where there's athleticism, there's versatility, but there's also a big old boy that you have to try to kind of help figure out how they can maximize their athleticism while also maintaining durability, everything else that comes into it. And there might be enough there physically to handle third base, but it's more likely that you let the bat shine and put it in a comfortable position that they can be responsible at. So right field just ends up being the home. I think that there's enough there athleticism-wise and arm-wise where he could figure it out at third, but that probably belates his path. So you don't actually go that path. You stick him in right field where it's going to be easiest, where it's going to be most efficient for his development, and then you just trust the process and go on from there. I think that that's probably the easiest answer that will likely be the course, even though he could handle third base if given the time.
I think we'll definitely see it. Like if someone needs an off day, I think he'll play a one-off game there.
We saw it with Nolan Jones last year. He got his one third base start at the major league level. But I think that's going to be the biggest question with him, and just the development to watch is where do the Rockies play him? And unless you're watching those games, it's going to be a little hard to track how well he's doing. But I mean, it could be a couple months in, he's getting more time in the corner outfield, and that'll be telling. So
I think the Guardians tried Nolan Jones at third base in the minor league system, and it didn't work out.
Yeah. Jonathan Mayo of MLB Pipeline saying many thought Condon was the best player in the draft, and he certainly put up numbers to back up that claim. Yada, yada. It's hard not to get excited about how his 70-grade power will play at Coors Field, even if it takes a little longer to figure out what position he might settle into, parentheses, I guess, outfield corner. But 70 power at Coors Field, haven't seen that in a while. It's pretty good.
And a solid contact bat. I think something that gets lost in the shuffle, his zone contact rate was actually higher than Travis Bazzana, who is the kind of hitting maestro of this class. Condon made more contact on pitches in zone. Bazzana is the freakiest player in this draft in terms of making contact on pitches outside the zone, but zone contact is something teams are looking at a lot. And Condon's rate of 89%, it is well above average. So it's something to keep in mind when you're combining that with elite power.
I also want to point out, so I can get this off my screen, that in high school, Charlie Condon was a member of the National Honor Society and National Spanish Honor Society.
Muy bien.
But that's my contribution.
Do we see him and Jose Iglesias little feature?
Oh my God, Lewis! OMG. Also, Jose Iglesias, he's going to be the first. Hold on, let me tweet this out. Jose Iglesias will be the first former member of the Rockies to perform a song at the All-Star game. Send. That's true. He will be performing.
I think Jose Reyes deserved an opportunity. He's got a pretty solid rapping career going.
Does he?
Yeah. La Me Laza.
He's got a rap sheet. I'll say that much. Hey,
nice.
Do we do sound effects here? Where
we can make them ourselves. There we go.
All right. So timeline-wise, I got a question for you. So if Condon is probably an outfielder, but let's just kind of push him into the same group of a Jordan Beck, a Zach Veen,
Sterling Thompson,
Benny Montgomery, Fernandez, Amador. So just general guess timeline for Condon and MLB debut. Because it's not too early or anything.
I just think the way the Rockies are, they've gotten more aggressive, but I don't think they take the Texas Rangers approach of, you could compare Condon to Langford pretty favorably in terms of how good they were in college, how pro ready they are. But I think the Rockies, just being the Rockies, we're probably looking at mid late next year at the earliest, probably on the later side, especially with all those guys in front of them. That's a logjam that has to be figured out. He's a guy you don't have to add to the 40-man, and they have a lot of guys that are outfielders you have to add to the 40-man. So that really complicates things.
I would say September 1st of next year, when the roster expands, he'll be one of the 2 spots.
Yeah, I'm torn. So, going into this, the thought of taking Charlie Condon was, I don't know, not bittersweet, but it was a gift and a curse because, hey, you're getting the best, pure hitter in this draft. But now you've painted yourself into a corner just a little bit. Now you need to go out and maybe be a little bit aggressive in trades. And now all of a sudden you're not getting maybe what you thought you would get for a player of a certain caliber that can play outfield, because everyone knows you only have so many of those guys, only so many of those starting spots in the major leagues, and you're just gonna have to make a choice. And I think the Rockies, in this year at spring training, when they had the GM and managers scrum for all of MLB, asking Bill Schmidt that question of how is this going to shake out? Because you almost have 6 players for 4 positions, right? You've got Ariel Amador at second base and kind of Sterling Thompson, but not really. He's more outfield. And you've got Benny and Zach Veen and Yanquiel Fernandez. And I feel like there's somebody else I might even be missing.
Jordan Beck.
There you go. At that point, it was Jordan Beck. We didn't know he was going to AAA. And it was it'll kind of sort of shake itself out. And, I don't know that necessarily that the Rockies should have already known who those guys were going to be, but they could have maybe staked some claim on a couple of them and then offloaded some for some more pitching. And now, they still may need to do that, but, are they going to now get 75 cents on the dollar? Because everyone knows you've got too many bodies for those same positions. So that becomes a little bit tricky. Speaking of Jordan Beck, I think he'll be on that Jordan Beck kind of path where, the bloom is off the rose. Unfortunately, I think for Zach Veen, I think for a lot of those guys where the Rockies are just maybe waiting for them to prove themselves just a little bit and open up some more spots on the big league roster before they get that opportunity. Whereas I don't think certain roadblocks are going to be in front of Condon in that way. It's going to be, hey, if this guy's ready to move up and go to the next level, then someone's going to lose playing time, and we'll deal with that when we can, because we've got, somewhat of a generational player here. So let's move them forward. And we saw that with Beck totally leaping past that crew that was there just before him. So I think that could be the same. I almost want to say 2026 opening day roster, but that's unusual for a player to kind of debut at that point. So, could it be as soon as the end of next year? It could be. It really could be.
I think you make a good point with the system and kind of the logjam, but I think we should call up Pittsburgh or Miami, these teams that just need bats and have so many pitching prospects. And I think we can get a good 1-for-1 deal that's pretty even with those teams.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point of the question, sorry to interrupt, but the whole point of the question was essentially, this is all before you bring up the names Brenton Doyle and Nolan Jones, who also have to play too. And so you have a similar time frame of trying to squeeze 6 guys into 3 outfield spots, within the next year and a half, 2 years kind of window. And I think Condon, whether they expect it or not, kind of immediately goes into that conversation. I think when he does make his professional debut, he's probably jumping up to high A because he's a more advanced hitter in the first place. Very good chance that he's starting next year in Double A, and then that's essentially right on the Jordan Beck, train and timeline that he was on before. And so, I don't know. This is picking at old scabs at this point, but it's made all the sense in the world between the Rockies and the Marlins for some time now. And I think that maybe this is kind of what pushes it over the top of finding a way of getting something done. Because I think that there's just a surplus that simply needs to be addressed. And that surplus can really be used to reinforce the pitching side, which, at this point too, it's hard for me to imagine. We'll see how the board shakes out, but it's hard for me to imagine that the Rockies don't go pitching probably on the second pick, and I wouldn't be surprised if they snag a pitcher with both the second and the third pick in this top 50 bucket that they have right now, because they kind of splurged on Condon a little bit. But yeah, there's too many good or potential prospects for not enough spots, and they're all on kind of the same timeline, and Condon just seems to exacerbate that.
I don't know if we're going to see two pitchers at 38 and 42. On paper, you go, yeah, you should be. But this draft is already feeling a little bit like 2020 when, Rockies were selecting, I think it was 8th that year. And it seemed like Max Meyer was going to maybe be that guy. And then he went a little bit early, similar like Chase Burns. And then the guy that was supposed to, there were rumors at number 2, Zach Veen was going to go. Then all of a sudden he slips to them at 8 and you go, hey, this is great. And then they fell in love with Drew Romo and they take a high school catcher. And that's actually been, working out fairly well for them. And they don't get their, a college pitcher in one of the deepest college pitching crops in recent memory. They don't get one until Chris McMahon. And then they don't get one again because that was limited to only 5 rounds. So I'm wondering if that similar vibe is going through, their war room right now. It's like, man, we already got Condon, man. Let's crush it with the next guy because we got this huge bat here. And if we put these two players together, man, look out. And then, if we've got someone available at 42, we'll take that guy because they are always looking for the best player that's available. But I wonder if right now they like what they're smelling. They're like how they smell, so to speak, and they're going to continue rolling that forward. So I don't know. It's one of those things to keep an eye on if it does play out that way, like 2020 did.
It's so tough to project the second round because late first round teams can really take guys that they like or can pass on guys. It kind of just depends on who's there for the Rockies.
Well, I think something interesting it might not play out, and it wouldn't make that much sense to play out with the Condon pick. Usually you take, your underslot guy if you're going to target and price down a high school player later in the draft. They still might have someone circled. That's really where I could see it not being 2 collegiate pitchers is they picked out a high school bat that they just fell in love with and think is the guy. And they snag him there's no pressure really to take him at 38. High school guys really get to choose where they want to go for the most part. So I think it's 2 pitchers or they circled a prep hitter, hopefully an up the middle guy. I don't know if we could use more players that are going to be slotted into those corner infield slots. A shortstop. There's a ton of prep shortstops in this class that there has to be one that they do really like. If they like them enough to, build their draft around them is the next question. So I'm thinking 2 pitchers, but that's sort of the other alternative that could come to be.
Yeah, I think that there's this gets back to a point that I made earlier. There's a clear divide on the top pitching crop, and then that second, set. And Smith and Burns were gone off the board within the top 5 picks, and so that head got cut off very quickly. And now you have Yesiage and maybe 3-4 guys if you want to throw like Cam Caminiti into that group.
And we already saw one leave the draft earlier, Schmidt. So it's even more dire for pitching.
Yeah.
So now it might be emphasized, but the bulk of the pitching talent in this draft is kind of supplemental round guys, and especially on the collegiate side. And so, there is probably going to be a bevy of options available to them, and maybe they jump and try to find the guy that they like the most with that 38th pick. And it's not to say that they're going to do both or that I have any idea, what the next 2 picks are going to be necessarily. But you essentially have a good cluster of 10 talented ACC, SEC guys that are all kind of in play within the next 2 pick range for the Rockies. So it's hard for me to see them walking out of the next 2 picks having not snagged a collegiate pitcher. And then I will say on the high school hitting side, it's something that I dabbled in a little bit, but I haven't had my finger on the pulse with this year as well. If they, are in love with a Theo Gillian, let's say, I don't see him getting to that pick is the only thing. And I especially don't see it when you have somebody like Oakland who probably just saved themselves a good amount of money with the Nick Kurt selection versus the Rockies, who are going to have to pay Condon at least slot value. I don't see much of an underslot deal that's going on there. And so I think that that factors into consideration. And again, I think that that's maybe where they just kind of get a little bit more reassurance and have their pick of the litter from that girth of supplemental round pitchers.
You make a really good point. The Rockies, I think since 2017, they haven't gone over slot with their first pick in the past like 7-8 years. I think this is the first we saw it. So I think this is almost like a change in the tide for the Rockies. This is normally they're not an aggressive franchise in the draft, but this was, I wouldn't say aggressive, but it was definitely different than the rest of the picks we've made.
Well, yeah, we don't have precedent for what happens after that.
Yeah.
But I think to K-Dub's point, we've seen Jonathan Santucci out of Duke mock. He's been mocked to the Rockies several times. Was a first-round prospect most of the season, but nipped by walks a little too much. But it's certainly first-round stuff from a left-handed pitcher. And, I mean, he wasn't walking, an exorbitant amount of guys. It was like, if you use walks per 9, it was like 4.5 per 9. Like, that's workable. And it's sort of a Helcris Olivares, like super clean mechanics. Why is he walking guys? That sort of thing. So I think there's hope if it's Jonathan Santucci, you get a potential first round type of prospect whose stock has really fallen because some command concerns. But I think the back of the first round is really going to dice up that college. What is remaining of like the top of the second tier of college pitching. So I'm a little scared for that to come. We're seeing all these positional guys go off. We're waiting for the college pitching. I think that's going to happen late teens into the mid and late 20s, and might leave the Rockies a little shorthanded in that demographic.
It might be a little bit early to bring this name up because he's anywhere from maybe 80 to 100. But and again, this would line up with this idea that, hey, this feels like the 2020 draft when they took Case Williams from Castle Rock. But has anyone given thought of like Trey Gregory Alford from Coronado High School down in Colorado Springs is going to end up with the Rockies? Like, Kenneth, you'd be the one to know. You might have even seen him pitch at some point in the last couple of years. But does he feel like someone that the Rockies might be salivating over?
I think he probably is going to be too strong of a college commitment. So I'd say yes, absolutely, because he's touching 97. He's a big athletic guy, and there's been a lot of progress with it. So it's very easy to see why you would like him, and he showed very well in the combine on a public stage. But I think, and this is also just commonplace for Colorado amateur pitchers, they generally go the college route because it's going to be safer, because they're going to be underappreciated as cold weather guys and also unknowns that didn't get enough exposure over that time. So while somebody like Case Williams they were on top of, I think that was a direct byproduct of the 2020 draft and the structure of it in that time. We don't have that same setup here. So I think the Rockies are and should be in on him, but I think that regardless of hometown, he's a perfect strong college commitment. You got to buy me out of that, and I don't see that happening with him.
Yeah, he's committed to Virginia.
It's a very interesting topic. I know, Kenneth, you're kind of the boots on the ground there, but these high schoolers that are like mid to late rounds, I think that's going to be like a demographic, a draftee that we never see again because they can make money in college now. Like it almost makes more financial sense to go to college, get the college experience. It's always fun. And then you can still get drafted after and make the same amount of money. So yeah. I almost think like we're going to see less and less college, or high school guys, unless they're like top 10 picks.
A lot of those later round draft picks are just swiping right on Twitter equivalents. I mean, where they're just like, hey, by the way, remember how we liked you? We'll talk to you in a couple of years,
Yeah. Dansby Swanson was one of those guys for the Rockies.
The 40-round drafts were so good with that.
Kumar Rocker. No, totally. And again, it goes back to there being less minor leagues, right? Less affiliates. And I think Major League Baseball decided, let's have these guys go to college and they can spend money on developing them for 2, 3, 4 years, and then we'll take the finished product rather than doling out all this money. So you're right. It's sort of like how the middle class free agents don't really exist anymore. I think those mid-round high school guys, there's going to be exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, teams and MLB at large, just go to college and then come out as a more finished product.
On the
Yeah,
flip
I
side
think
of
there's
it,
always going to be kids who they almost don't even they commit and but they don't really they do that as a formality. Things don't go well. I have a college commitment. Some of these guys they're willing to sign for not even the amount they could they theoretically should get on the market. Some of them sign for 150K on day 3. Some of the guys just want to go, and that opens them up. So with TGA Gregory Alford, I do think he ends up at Virginia, but if someone nabs him here in the top 60, 75 picks, it really comes down to like his desire to go pro. That's always what's driving the boat at the end of the day. Some of them want him, you could go make that money, but some of them are like, I don't want to go to school. Are you kidding me? So we could certainly see that play out with someone like Trey Gregory Alford.
Or TGA, as you're now calling
Yeah.
him. Is that a real thing?
It is.
Or
It is a very real thing. No, funny. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn. It's kind of a funny story. I used to work for his advisor, TGA, here in Colorado. So he was TGA. I don't know who his current advisor is, but yeah. So that's the inner circle lingo that you get here.
So I don't know if you guys are going to do any kind of recap or anything, and so I'll stay out of the way of that. But a couple of things I'm just noticing on the draft board, because we got 10 picks that have already been taken. The first 2 picks of this year's MLB draft, not born in the United States. Australia, and Chase Burns was born in Italy, which, hey, I did not know. I learned that today. We have 2 of the first 4 picks came out of Wake Forest. In fact, 3 of the first 10 picks came from Wake Forest. The Washington Nationals selecting not Koufax God and not Saint Big Unit. They drafted Seaver King out of Wake Forest. So, I mean, if you like good baseball names like Seaver King, I would hope you appreciated my Koufax God joke.
There's some good names in this draft class. This is an all-time name class for sure.
Yeah, there's a few unique ones. I'm trying to think of we have Durangelo Saintja, which we had to verify that. I was like,
you nailed it. That's right. Saintja. Yeah.
I had to listen to some. I heard a couple of different pronunciations in the sound clips, but that was the one that sort of seemed official. I think that's the coolest one we've got.
Which if there's a picture we're gonna take, I'm all over that guy. That guy, I mean, come on. 2 hands, come on.
There's a couple people in the Rockies world. I can't wait to try to see how many years it takes for them to pronounce Durangelo Saintja. They're like, yeah, they're just gonna be calling him JC. Like, JC?
JC, yeah, switch JC.
He must be the savior if he's able to go throw righty and lefty on that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. I would really love to make it to pick 38, but those guys eventually are going to be picked in. We just saw another bat go off the board in Bryce Rayner to the Tigers. We're 2 pitchers in here. We're 2 pitchers in here. So at some point that dam is going to break, and we're going to be a little bit pained by each pick. It'd be great to get one of these premium college guys at 38. So we're playing the waiting game now.
I really like this pick for Detroit.
Yeah. I'm surprised Rayner fell to 11. I thought he was a lot better than the 11th player in this draft class.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of assurance being played, a little bit of caution in the top 10. But I think for somebody like Detroit that has really done so well on developing their pitching and made it formidable, they have some pieces in place on the hitting side, but they're really emptying their cupboards on a lot of the draft capital that they've accumulated over the past couple of years. So somebody like this that could stand out in their system for a time. And also a lot of their bats have kind of been cornerish. I know Riley Green is the center fielder, but they're really leaning pretty heavy on figuring it out up the middle. And it hasn't worked out to this point. So now it gives them kind of a Colson Montgomery to dream on, the same way the White Sox are trying to pin that right now. And I think that's something that's been sorely needed in their system for some time, for a couple of years.
And you got Javi Baez there for a couple more years. So, there's no really pressure on them to call him up. Like, Baez is going to play shortstop. He's getting paid a lot of money. He's kind of stuck there. So
if he doesn't get bought out first. Javi Baez under contract for a couple of years.
That'll be this year.
Can you think of any 2 teams that could link up that have really bad contracts where they want to get rid of that player, where you would maybe trade like a Javi Baez for player B from a team that was, not living up to expectations? Anyone? Just chime in if you think of something.
I think Wilson Contreras and the Cardinals could be pushed into a divorce very quickly. Also,
Okay.
I know where we're going with that conversation, but I do see something like
I
that.
don't know what you're talking about. I just threw a question out and I have no idea what to expect. I don't know what you're
I
accusing me
think
of.
player B is in a very happy marriage right now. I don't think there's going to be a divorce there. But I mean, at the Tigers, I do like what they're doing. Last year they took two guys, or I guess they took Jace Young 2 years ago, but they took Kevin McGonigal last year, a prospect who has just flown up prospect boards, being talked about now as a top 30 guy, and he's another shortstop, second baseman type. So they're doing a good job now, really accumulating those more athletic, versatile players up the middle. But also they realize quickly, like our current core is not meshing to win. So just extend that prospect timeline. Just consistently have good players coming up over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. They extended Colt Keith for like 9 years already. So that was before even. I think he only played a couple games, and then they did that. So they definitely kind of already have a lot of money in that middle infield already.
So it's
Even
funny.
Green, so.
It's funny you bring that up. This idea that you know what, maybe they don't really have this core right now, or it's not working out. So you can kind of select a player that's a little bit further on down the road, and I think they actually do have pieces that are there right now. It just didn't link up this year as like they were hoping. You know, we're all right. Scooble's approaching free agency, I think, at the end of next year. So it's super close for him. Torkelson still has a way to go, but it just hasn't worked out. So they're kind of stuck in between just a little bit. But does this pick of Charlie Condon make you feel better? And I don't think it's going to make you feel worse, but better about the Rockies' sort of window of contention, like sooner than later, because it seems like with some of the younger picks that they had been making and the not trading a Trevor Story and John Gray, and at least in the case of Trevor Story, it was, well, we want to get the draft pick, so we're going to forego yet another year of a player instead of getting a guy who's already in high A or double A and can help us that much sooner. We'll wait even longer to kind of have an impact from the loss of a player like that. Like they're kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit with some high school picks. Like, yeah, no, we're waiting a little bit longer. And whereas now they last 2 years with Dolander and Condon, hey, take a look at us now. We're getting guys that don't really need that much more seasoning before they make an impact on the majors.
I think with high schoolers, it's like you really got to take their time in the beginning. But once high schoolers get a grab of pro ball, I think you can fast track them. Like we see that even with like the 16-year-olds that sign from overseas. It's like once you get that pro ball ready, you can kind of start going. Well, like Max Clark right now, like he's still getting used to like high school baseball. You don't play that many games, and then you're coming here playing every single day. It's tough. It takes you a couple years to really get used to it.
Yeah, I think it does speed that timeline up though quite a bit. Again, I mentioned it at the top. They don't have that guy that you're very confident will be an above average bat. Like a lot of guys that are going to hover around that mark, Condon can really turn the tide on his own. So you pair him with someone like Chase Dolander, who right now looks like a pretty, those two guys look like they're going to be the impact guys at their positional group. And so getting those two, it could change a lot for the Rockies.
Yeah, and I agree, but I also think that that's just an added benefit of this election more than anything, because you don't have a Max Clark or you don't have a Walker Jenkins like you did last year. And so if it had come down to comparing apples to oranges between a high schooler and a collegiate hitter, maybe they would have felt a little bit differently if they did see a Max Clark and they did see something else that they liked over something like Condon, especially with center field availability, which I think is pretty well off the board with Condon. So I think that's where we get into hypotheticals, but I think that more than anything, it's just an added benefit that now you get to place Condon right into that exact same timeline of this new youth movement that they already have in motion right now.
I mean, yeah, it's exciting. I don't remember the last time. Like I'm being a little bearish on all these guys, but you have so many young and potentially great players in the system. It's been we had that, I guess, in 2016, and it didn't go to plan. But it seems like with more modern scouting, you're getting better shots at these guys, and there's a little bit less of a bust risk with some of them. So having 12 to 15 prospects that you feel could be everyday guys, that's an exciting place to be, and I can't wait to see it start to play out towards the end of the season.
Yeah, in the past hour, the farm system just got so much better. I think Condon's a top 20 prospect. I don't know historically what they rate these guys, but I would say top 20 prospect in baseball. Whoever we get here will be another top 10 guy in our system. The next 2 picks are top 15. We could have a top 10 to, I'd say top 10 system by probably the end of the night, I'd say. Or maybe it might be a hot take, but I'll say it.
So are you putting Charlie Condon ahead of Chase Dollander now as far as top Rockies prospects?
I mean, I think you have to have the conversation of Condon as the top 10 prospect in baseball. I don't think people are gonna go prospect fatigue with like a Dylan Cruz, but I don't think that you can put Condon much behind Cruz, if at all. And Cruz is highly regarded as a top 5 prospect. So I see him entering that top 10 pretty immediately, especially if you're looking at the MLB pipeline list. I think he's going to slot very, very quickly into their top 10.
It'd be intriguing because I think Cruz has a higher floor just because the defense is there. Like the bat doesn't really have to be elite. I think Condon, the bat has to be very good for him to be a very good player. So I do I'm interested to see how they weigh the risk and reward for these prospects.
Yeah, the only thing that I also see coming into this is you're seeing a couple of guys like James Wood or Brooks Lee coming off the boards too, and I think that that's going to help elevate the stock of Condon. Whether it's top 20, whether it's just outside of the top 10, I think that that's all relative to show that he's a premier and blue chip guy. I think Dollander made the conversation more interesting about whether he is ahead. So really, do you have that much of a gap between a Rhett Lauder in the prospect ranking and a Dollander right now? I think he closed that narrative quite a bit with his performance so far in high A, and I think that could be reflected on him being 1A and 1B with Condon, and I think that's probably the way it's going to get viewed, especially dependent on how Dollander looks going to AA, because I feel like if it wasn't already announced, that's happening as soon as we get back from the break.
Yeah, that was announced. And so and to your point, Kenneth, Lauder right now on MLB Pipeline's rankings, which they haven't reshuffled yet, and so they haven't really considered the first half of the minor league season. You've got Rhett Lauder at 20, and you've got Chase Dollander at 36. So that's kind of in that range there, I think, just a little bit.
Where's Lauder at? In what league is he in? Is it the Carolina League right now?
He's in AA, right?
Yeah. AA. Yeah,
so that's Southern League, right? Pensacola Blue Wahoos.
He's with
Chattanooga.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But I think at this point though, Dollander, I mean, it's certainly a conversation. I think Dollander has proven that he belongs above Lauder in those rankings. Lauder was sort of taken as this super polished, ready guy with no questions, and I mean, he's got a difficult assignment in AA. He's got a 6.5 ERA in AA right now. So we'll have to see how Dollander to really solidify that. But
I think that's in a really pitcher-friendly league, too.
I don't think we're quite getting what I don't think the Reds are getting what they expected entirely out of Lauder. Just a little bit less immediate impact.
Well, it's similar to the Jack Leiter assignment. As soon as he was selected, they basically pushed him directly into AA. And I think that more often than not, there is a first half struggle that comes with it with Lauder. So it's not impressive, but I also take it with a big grain of salt of having a pretty heavy-handed assignment from the get-go. Regardless, we'll see how Dollander looks when he gets to AA, but there doesn't seem to be much of a gap between the two right now. And if that's somebody that's a consensus top 25 guy at some point, in the season, I think Dollander's right in that conversation, which I think Condon is until he kind of shows in his first full season, how it all looks for a full year.
Yeah, I would like to point out that Southern League, not Carolina League, it's like historically, currently, like one of the best for pitchers, like of all time. So Lauder's numbers are really interesting. I do think Dollander with that context, I know Northwest League also pitching paradise, but with that context, I'd put him above Louder.
I may also have some recency bias that in his last start, at least they might have had a very hot gun there. Allegedly, he hit 101 hit 100 multiple times, touched 101 in Spokane. That to me, it's like if he's a guy who can now sit in the mid upper 90s instead of just 94, 96, if he's like 96 to 98 consistently, I think that gives him an edge to potentially live up to all the billing of top of the rotation guy. And already getting into that upside that I don't think Louder quite has that upside. So I think that's an interesting point to discuss. Is you're seeing someone flourish as a prospect and take those next steps. And again, like you mentioned, K-Dub, it's early and there's a lot of context to there. But in terms of that progression, I think one of those guys has really made it, and one of them is getting there. Hopefully, I root for guys like that.
How about, I don't know if this is more context or taking something out of context, but going into the 2023 draft, Dollander was very much one of those players that could have gone 1-1, and so that didn't happen. Messed with the slider. That was bad. But if you look at his numbers in 2022, and then look at his numbers now in 2024, and just block out 2023, what kind of pitcher are you talking about there right now? Right, like. To Kenneth's point, I think you might put Dollander ahead of a Louder easily.
Dollander was in Skeen's conversation before that 2023 season. He was like 1-1 locked in almost. And then
he like was Skeens before Skeens.
The way that Dollander dropped was how Skeens went full Phoenix and rose from the ashes on that. It might be pulling from nothing, but there's a lot of overlap, I feel like, on the scouting profile, the projections, the background between Dollander and John Gray when he entered the system. I feel like there's a lot between the two, and the big thing with Gray, it took him a little bit of time to figure it out, but there was no longer the 98 to 100 consistently as a starting pitcher, because that was a big calling card for John Gray when he was selected. Was, oh my God, this fire-breathing dragon, can you imagine that being your A starting pitcher? And it came back down to earth to live a little bit more in a 94 to 96, which is still good, and it still shows that John Gray is a great Major League pitcher. But this gets to Tyler's point earlier where, boy, if you can get Dollander to show up and he's consistently touching the 97, 99, 100 range in his starts, it is such a game changer for the Rockies. And that's kind of something that's never been there except for you, Baldo, I feel like. And I feel like that would be very unique to see that come across, because I think that was a lot of the hope for Gray. Never really quite panned out, still turned into a great quality Major League pitcher, but it wasn't quite the dragon that they thought they might have drafted. And so the initial impressions, at least with Dollander, is that he could maybe still maintain that and still be that. So that's all the more exciting with him.
Yeah, I think he's entered John Gray territory for sure. And we saw the end of the beginning and the end of John Gray, and know that he became a good big league pitcher. That's always you got to check that box. But as a prospect, you can already make the arguments that he is getting to that level and maybe going up beyond it. John Gray struggled with mechanical issues in the minor leagues, and I think Dollander, he had mechanical issues coming into the pros, things that he changed from 22 to 23. If that's an obstacle that he's not going to run into again, we are looking at a true John Gray level prospect. And I mean, that's an exciting representation, I think, of a guy like him.
So if Jonathan Gray out of the University of Oklahoma developed and morphed into the Gray Wolf, does that mean Chase Dollander is going to become a dire wolf? What's the math on that? Huh? Is that something? Is that a thing? No? Okay, that's fine. We can ignore it. Cut this part out, Lewis.
I mean, it is House of the Dragon Day. So very, very fitting there, Patrick. Very fitting. But I mean, we're seeing this is a crazy run on bats in this draft. We have not seen it. I mean, we've seen two pitchers now in the first 14 picks. I mean, I think it's understandable that we expected more bats to go. There's not that many pitchers in this top group, but we're still seeing Trey Yesevich sitting on the board there, Cam Eddie. when are we going to see somebody like that get picked here? Because I don't think maybe Seattle pulls a fast one, but they've got 5 elite starters in their MLB rotation. They love to just add.
It's not going to be Miami. So
yeah, Miami's coming, and Miami. Yeah, same with Miami. They are a pitching kind of heaven. So when do these pitchers start to go?
I would like to say Miami. They need to focus so badly on hitting, though, and especially not being quite a lottery pick. It's hard not to push. If I'm sitting in those shoes, to push for hitting, because they need to supplement it. Jacob Berry is showing signs of life lately, but it's only been getting worse, I feel like, for their hitting pipeline. And yeah, everybody is hurt to hell and back right now on the pitching side, and they are, they have a strength of developing pitching. They need to add offensive talent badly. So I would be a little surprised if that's the way Miami goes.
Yeah, I like the Joe Mack, the Marcy, Martirello. They got some dudes, but I mean, it's gonna be tough if they draft a pitcher to like defend that pick, because they need, even in the MLB, they need bats like badly. It's probably
they practically whiffed on every offensive evaluation they've had in the last couple of years. Like a lot of top prospects or top picks have been spent on the offensive side, and they have nothing to show for it. If you're discounting Jacob Berry pretty heavily at this point, it is a really tough picture of just what they've spent on that side of the ball and just don't have anything to show for it. So do they try to right their wrongs, or do they dig their heels in?
Is it a new GM?
Not wrong. Yeah, it is. This is the first year with a new, I don't know if it's an entirely new front office or just some new leadership. So I guess there is no precedent for them.
Yeah, Peter Bendix came over from the Tampa Bay Rays. So, I mean, if they really are turning the keys over to him to kind of run the team like the Rays, maybe it will take a while for them to kind of sort those things out, but they could start doing things a bit more drastically there in Florida.
I mean, they seem like a good destination for a prep hitter. That's what Tampa has founded a lot of their success on, is getting young, projectable, athletic players. And Miami, I don't think they're planning to win anytime soon. So I could certainly see that's where that prep shortstop range starts to kick in. K-Dub mentioned Theo Gillen as a really,
I'm seeing Seattle right now, and Seattle is fantastic at taking them.
They're jacked. So
that thought did just come to mind. Yeah, this is an interesting spot right now, because it doesn't feel like anybody has necessarily really fallen either. There's been some out of order in kind of the top dozen, some shuffling, so to speak, but there's no Hagen Smith still sitting there kind of thing. No. If it was Miami's position, then at that point it's like, yeah, you take him. I wondered if Montgomery maybe was going to slide that far.
That was a little interesting, though, to see him make it well outside the top 10, a couple picks out of there. A guy that in a lot of mocks, you could see him going, pick 4, pick 5, pick 6. That was sort of his happy range.
Is that not Boston's MO, though, to always leave the first round with like a guy that just slipped right
into the really good job, yeah. But I am surprised Trey Yesevich is still up there. That's a guy I was super high on. I think he has 4 like very legit pro-ready pitches and threw a lot of strikes in college. So someone will be very happy with that selection. But again, we discussed those are 2 teams coming up right now. It might make sense to just keep letting that arm fall.
Last time I remember an East Carolina pitcher going that high, actually a lot higher than that, was Jeff Hoffman. And wait for it, he turned out to be an all-star.
Yeah.
Took a while.
Good one.
He did.
They like to every 3 or 4 years produce a really good pitcher. I mean, they had Gavin Williams was I think 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and he fast tracked to the big leagues, a lot faster than people were expecting at least, and could be really good. So you got to wait every 2 years, every 3 years that East Carolina pitcher. It's inevitable.
All right, here's the question for the room and for anyone listening at home. Listening to the Blake Shoot Banner podcast or watching live on YouTube and all these other platforms you guys are on. Are you giving up your firstborn child at pick 38 for Brody Brecht? Go.
Yes.
Okay.
Give us the
Tyler's
gas.
adopting. Okay.
No. I don't have faith in the Rockies being able to develop Brecht into a strike thrower.
I know your lady, so she will appreciate that answer. Lewis, break the tie.
I'm gonna say no. You know, it's funny.
Really? Okay,
We
well,
just saw Gerangelo get taken right here.
Yeah.
That would have been my pick there, but
which
Seattle
one?
does go with
I
the
mean,
pitcher.
Which
a
Durangelo?
lot
Could you say
earlier
his
than
last name?
Gerangelo, Tyler, you want to take control?
No, Lewis, go ahead. Which one? No, you're looking at the
Wait,
screen
who are
right
you
now.
talking about though?
Yeah.
St. Jude. St. Jude.
Which
Sanchez,
Durangelo?
there you
Oh,
go.
okay.
Not
Have it in
bad.
the chat, Tyler.
Which one, the right-handed pitcher or the left-handed pitcher?
Yeah.
That was a surprising landing spot, though. No, and not necessarily just because it was Seattle, but pick 15 and ahead of Trey Esovich. That's not something that I think anyone was quite seeing in the cards.
Is he
So
going
we
to
are seeing some interesting patterns, unfold here on draft night.
He's going to be given a chance to start, I guess, for as long as possible, right?
I think you have to when you take it 15.
Both sides. Yeah.
So what's interesting is Pat Venditte, the only other switch thrower I know, did play for Seattle. So there you go. There's something.
Oh, I did not realize that. Yeah, I went to University of Creighton with one of our favorite people out in the Rockies world, Justin Wick.
Wait, did their timelines?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't go with each other. They just happened to.
Okay, I was like, wait. I was like, isn't Venditti like 35 or something? Like, I didn't know Wick was
Justin
back.
Wick is like he has a
Wick skipped a couple grades. That's all.
and the same as oh shoot, I'm forgetting. This would have been a good callback. God, who was the like middle infielder that got taken?
Oh gosh, and he just got taken into Rule 5 last year. Isaac.
Yeah. Yes. I
Siegler?
can't even think of his last name.
Yeah.
Isaac something.
Not to be
Is it the Nationals guy? I know the Nationals have a Rule 5 pick that they aren't playing. Like they're running with a 25-man roster right now.
No, he was taken in the minor league phase. So it was Mateo Gil was taken by the Mets in the minor league, and then so was this guy who was sort of like a higher upside Hunter Stovall. So to speak.
Isaac something.
Yeah. Oh well. Anyway, how do we get on this Creighton? Yeah, pitching two ways. So the rule is if you had a switch hitter and a switch pitcher going up at the same time, the pitcher is the one that has to choose the side first, and then the hitter gets to respond accordingly. Which I feel like makes sense. Which feel like Isaac Collins. Thank you, Kenneth. Which I feel like makes sense because hitters are always at a disadvantage. So the pitcher picks the side, and then the hitter follows suit.
Yeah, me and Tyler broke down this pick in one of the mock drafts we did. It's very much like I think he's a righty, right? Like his best hand's a righty.
He focused on righty this year.
Yeah, so he's like a right-handed pitcher, but you can't platoon him because if you try to, he'll just go out there with a lefty. Because I don't think he'll do it the whole game. His left hand is not, I don't want to say MLB caliber, but not as high caliber as the right hand.
Well, I think he's the sort of guy that if you develop him both ways, he maybe throws 15, 20 pitches with his left arm. If even that, he might face a couple batters with his left arm. Because he's really good from the right side. He is a first-round prospect from the right side. And then, hey, I can go throw 92 with a good slider from the left side too. So
natural left.
I think he's going to throw 90 pitches from the right side in the start, and then whatever he does as a lefty is sort of an added bonus. And he clarified on the pre-draft show, and I'm sure Patrick, you knew this already. You can't switch in the middle of an at-bat from right to left. So yes, I wasn't sure about that. I was like, could you just like kind of throw in your fifth pitch, which is actually your first pitch from the other side, but you can't do that. So
okay, how about this rule? I don't know where the name Gerangelo comes from because his full name is Jean-Michel Saintje. So Gerangelo, don't know where that comes from. Also, in the course of the Saintje career, will we ever hear Saintje goes on the 15-day IL for Tommy John surgery? He does expect to be out for the minimum 15 days because the one arm gets the surgery.
Go with the other side.
And then he's like, I mean, I still could play, but just for logistics, we do need the roster spot. So I'm going to go get TJ, but I will be back for the Red Series coming up.
I think there's a very strong chance that he'll have the fastest turnaround on a Tommy John surgery to return to play. I would still give him the full 60 though, because I mean you're slung up there for a while, man. Like you got a good 6 weeks in that sling. Yeah. So
You're Henry Rowan garnering it for a
Yeah.
little while.
He's gonna, unless they let him go out with that brace that's gonna restrict his movement on his TJ arm. I don't see that quite happening.
This
But
is just
still
a way.
60 days back.
Yeah, this is just a way for me to get Kenneth to show off his new arm tattoo. Clearly,
Yeah, those are all stickers. Don't worry about it.
Temporary.
I was gonna say I didn't know you liked Hello Kitty that much. That makes more sense.
I mean, I thought we were friends, but now you're just finding this out about me with Hello Kitty.
I'm more of a Bats Maru kind of guy myself. I know everybody in the Sanrio Kingdom.
Anybody else been waiting for Rob Manfred to have problem with the saloon doors every time?
That's a great touch for this year. I mean, and you can take it in either like I genuinely like it or in an ironic way. Either way, I like it. It's a funny condition for the year.
That's pretty good.
Ginger.
How about TJ Morlando slipping to the Marlins? Not slipping because he slipped this whole year. Like he was a guy going into the year. I was like, hey, this is a possible top 5, top 10 guy. You know, doesn't have a good senior season in high school, and now he's going to the Marlins. That's an interesting selection right there.
Wait for them, new regime, first pick of it. I think that's a really good.
I think we hammered it. The prep bats. They're gonna try to get those in the system.
Yeah, but he's one of those that you don't have the same volatility of a normal prep infielder. That there's so much value built on their athleticism. He's a bat that you hope can hang in a corner outfield spot. So that bat is going to play. And I was hoping there'd be a chance he slipped to the Rockies. With the Condon pick, the logistics didn't really make any sense there anymore. But he's hitting 110 miles an hour at the combine. And the reports are that he doesn't swing and miss much, like at all. So if you could combine those skills as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old bat, there's a fun profile there.
What is it with big, strong, left-handed, red-headed hitters from Carolinas? You had Walker Jenkins last year.
Yeah.
You have Orlando this year. You have Josh Hamilton if you want to go that far back. It's kind of wild. They all come from the same place. But, no, I mean, I think it's a good pick. The high school route, though, with Miami does – I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit down on them as an organization as a whole. It's good, talented player to add into it. But – if they could do it over, I think they would hope that somebody like a Christian Moore is there for them to kind of help inject when, and help this pitching that they have now.
So speaking of Christian Moore, who was selected 8th overall, does he get to the majors faster than anybody else just because of the simple fact that he was drafted by the Angels, or will someone like Travis Bazzana,
he'll be in the lineup tomorrow.
He's on a flight already, too.
The only thing that made your statement silly, Lewis, is the fact that it's the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there were people out there ready to tweet and fire off and give you some credit. You know what I'm saying? Like you're Jeff Passan.
But, I mean, jokes aside, I think he's one of those guys. There's things to polish up. The power is huge, especially for a middle infielder. But contact, he doesn't make a ton of contact. He's a little bit of an aggressive hitter. So you saw Nolan Shanwell last year, who contact and the approach was the name of his game. And that's something that I think will get you to the big leagues fast. So Moore is sort of the yang to Shanwell's yin. I don't know that he can do the same thing that Nolan Shanwell did.
It's interesting because Shanwell was like a mid-major, FAU guy, and they still rushed him up. So I almost wonder if this is going to be the same because Christian Moore played high-level baseball, and he ended the season probably higher than any other player in terms of stock.
Yeah, I have to wonder if the Angels are just sort of like, okay, Ohtani's no longer with us. Let's try to be a little bit more normal rather than really pushing all our chips in because we don't really have very many to begin with.
Well, they're still doing it in the minor leagues. They're still calling dudes up like crazy. Even after Ohtani, they're still doing it. So It's odd. Who's the second baseman they have in Double-A right now that just does not belong in Double-A?
Kyler Paris or
no, Paris. They put him up too quickly too.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the closer. I think it was for Tennessee this year. So when you asked the question of who's the first to debut, I think, yes, the Angels absolutely
Nelson Rod.
bring that conversation up from the get-go. But there was either Arkansas or Tennessee, I feel like, had just an absolute lights-out closer. And
Yeah,
that's
as you get on
probably
that, it's
Sacramento.
Nelson Rod, an 18-year-old with like a 500 OPS in AA right now. Just way above
Yeah,
his
that
head.
is like as unfortunate of a system as you can find in professional
I mean,
baseball.
even like Barrett Kearns and 6 ERA A ball, 19 years old. The Rockies don't like to have young guys and especially hitters in A ball and high
Man, I don't think Cam Caminiti is going to be available at 38 for the Rockies, but it does give you an interesting feeling if you go, wait a minute, they're going to have Caminiti, who I believe it's Ken Caminiti's nephew.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, no, they might be cousins. Maybe it's
No,
like
it's cousin. It is cousins. I think it's like a second cousin.
Yes, exactly. All right, so that's what I think of like nephew. But they'll have a Caminiti and a Caros in the same system. They might have something brewing. I don't know. Just saying.
I mean, I would buy some stock into it if it wasn't Condon at pick 3. I remember it was 2022. Brock Porter was arguably the best or second best prep pitcher in the class. Everyone thought he was going to go in the top 15. I mean, he had, end of the story is in the 4th round on an underslot or an overslot deal. I was hoping the Rockies pulled that up because they had taken Gabriel Hughes earlier in the draft. It seemed like the match, but I just don't think they have the resources to pull it off.
I think that was your first draft. That was your first draft show that you guys did. I'm pretty sure, right? I mean, I kind of remember that.
Yeah, well, I think we at least did, Twitter Space or something like. Yeah, it was a Twitter Space. I remember that now. I vividly remember, Jordan Beck getting picked on the Twitter Space.
Yeah,
we had gone pick 8 with Hughes.
Yeah, no, I remember going on to MySpace and
yeah.
And my mom was waiting for a phone call, and she knocked me off the internet. So yeah, no, that was great coverage back then. Lewis, Lewis, you're young, man. You're young.
Lewis hadn't been born at that point.
No reaction from him whatsoever. Like I have no idea what you guys talking about.
But I mean, there's a few pitchers. I mean, again, Trey Yesevich, to bring that name up again. You can't price down a college guy with remotely the same level of effectiveness. But the Rockies like Trey Yesevich from what I have heard. So
is he a senior?
That would be a match made in heaven. I think he's still 20 years old. I think he's a draft. Well, not a draft eligible. I don't think he's a sophomore, but he's very young for his age, his year. He turns 21 in 14 days. So you would think that play into some teams' models that he is like much younger. Like there's a lot of guys who turn 22 in a month or two.
Yeah, Hagen Smith is still 20. He's a couple months younger than Chase Burns, which I don't know what that's worth pick wise, but
I mean, teams really do buy into that age curve. It's you're not going to see a guy who's 22 years old drafted maybe later tonight, but probably not tonight. They're all going to be 21 and under. So they really, I mean, even a few months might end up. It makes a difference in the kind of the models that they work. I mean,
that's
maybe
true.
It maybe
the Rockies have done that,
but
Rockies have been like that. I mean, that wasn't necessarily the biggest piece of drafting Ryan Rolison, but he was a 20-year-old guy when they drafted him, and so they definitely preferred like the younger side of that for that one extra year for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, again, maybe to a fault. That's the model. But also it's sort of like those guys had another look at the same age these players are, and they didn't get picked, high enough to want to go pro or have the stock. So I think there is something to that. It's a little crazy though that truly you will not see a 22-year-old drafted all night.
So Kenneth, you will not be drafted on night 1.
I'm still waiting for the phone call. I always am. So if Caminiti slides further, so LSU commitment, a lot of the pre-draft banter was about San Francisco and Caminiti kind of being one and the same, and with them going with Tibbs, there's still plenty of opportunity between the next 5 picks or so, but I'm curious if he just becomes one of those guys that kind of slips out and ends up going the college route with it, with a strong LSU commitment. Because I don't know, seeing him outside of the top 20 is going to look a little bit different, especially without much of an injury history to him, as opposed to somebody like Dylan Lesko from a few years back. So,
I mean, I guess Tampa right here could be a sound fit. Get that talented arm.
so Tampa has Theo Gillian now. That just popped off on the ticker. Before
That is a
the TV,
that is a
but
very raised pick.
yeah, I was going to say that's very Tampa.
I wanted Honeycutt because I go to Rays games. I live in Tampa, so I think Honeycutt was so fun to watch. But good pick by the Rays. It's like a solid like this is the Rays to a T type pick.
When I think people have said that there were concerns about his back health, and otherwise he might have projected into the teens or even close to the top 10, but some health concerns. So I mean, I think the talent is without question off the charts. But
reminds me a little bit of like a Jordan Lawler.
Yeah,
just a touch.
agree.
I feel like with some of the names like with Yasevich still being out there, and that's just picking him in particular because it feels like he's ready to do up as the third best college arm right now in this draft. But what is that signing bonus that was worked out with Bazana? Because again, look, he's an Australian guy, and so this is just one of those things that is good for the resume and for, not necessarily selling tickets, but down in Australia like that, that's a really big deal, and that has a ton of value. So to him, he could take a little bit less because you're going to get a lot of stock out of that. The best player selected in 2024, like that can never be taken away from a guy. So like that probably has a value that I imagine his agency is like, hey, this is worth this much over your life, depending on how your career might go. So if he is taking, a decent amount of a haircut from the Guardians, well, the Guardians are only the other one of the other teams in the top 4 that also have a competitive balance round A. So now that 2.6 that they've got for the 36th overall pick, now all of a sudden maybe that's closer to 3.5, 4. I don't know. I mean, even still, we're at that point where these guys in the Mets with the 19th overall pick has $4.2 million. So, I mean, it'd have to be a decent haircut, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
You made a good point. The first overall pick, there is some prestige with that, and you can't really quantify a player's care for that. Like that's not really something you can like put on like a number on. Like how much do they care about being like your autograph's probably going to be worth more. I mean, we see with like an underslot there too, like a Henry Davis. It's just so much more pressure though. Even so, if you don't perform, I just feel like you don't perform as that pick. Like it's a lot worse than like being pick 5.
Mickey Moniak.
It was too much for Mickey.
Yeah. And you're right. Like I don't think the players necessarily care quite as much, unless those driven players that want to be or need to be 1-1. And the names you bring up as being selected first overall, you're like, they've kind of fallen flat so far. I'll say so far for Davis, Moniak is just what it is. But again,
I think if you get drafted number 1 and you fail, like you'll be remembered as a fail because it's just like that was number 1. Sure. Like no one remembers the pick 5 fail from 7 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody remembers Greg Reynolds, right?
Wait, what is the all right? Is it Casey Weathers or Greg Reynolds that went like one pick before Evan Longoria?
Reynolds.
It was Reynolds. Okay. Yeah.
Casey Weathers was what? 2009?
I think so. He was number 2 overall, right?
No. So Casey Weathers was like a 7 overall or something like that, but way too much of a reach. Greg Reynolds was
2.
Oh, he was okay.
Behind Luke Hochevar and in front of Longoria, Kershaw, and everybody else in the world.
Win. A win. But I mean, to your point, Patrick, and I think we already saw it tonight with the Rockies and Charlie Condon. I mean, you don't talk about college leverage to kind of work your landing spot. It's possible though. I mean, you're a guy in interviews, meeting with teams, and you get to manipulate how teams perceive you and whether they're going to, pour out that interest for you. So maybe we're seeing something like that with Trey Yesovich, who
Yeah, I do also
to go
believe
top half of the first round.
there was an imbalance with the Reds pick where like the Rockies had the second best, like money wise, and Guardians had the biggest pool. The Reds didn't have that big of a pool compared to the first round pick they had. So there was an imbalance, and I think they kind of rebalanced back out with that pick.
Yeah, Reds don't
that's why,
select until would we be their normal pick, because again, we're looking at Guardians, Reds, Rockies because of the draft lottery. And again, Guardians and Rockies have the competitive balance round A. The Reds, theirs is round B. So the Reds don't pick again until 51. And for anyone that doesn't remember, there was I don't know, it wasn't even 30 seconds, but a 15-second window where the Rockies were going to have the first overall pick during that draft lottery. And you see all the numbers of like who has the highest percentage. The Rockies were number one.
We were the last bad team of like remaining.
The last of the 13.7% of the clubs. And so it was like, oh my God, the Rockies are going to get the first third pick. Okay, well, hey, that's all right. That's,
that was the emotions were 3. Then we look at like the A's. It was like, okay, well, we're not doing that bad.
And you mentioned the White Sox, how they're gonna have to pick outside of the top 10 next year. The Rockies, after this year, they're going to be in that same boat after another 100 plus loss season and a draft lottery this December. That's it. Now they need to be a lot better, really, in 2025, because they're going to be pushed out of that top 10 as well, because they won't be able to get 3 years in a row like that.
What's good about that is that draft 2026 will have a comp A pick, so we will have the money. I think like we'll still have good money in that draft, so it does even out. That's actually really lucky for us that that's the draft we have a comp A pick, not a comp B pick.
They might get lucky and end up with a guy with the last name of Holiday for the 2025 draft before they get kicked out. So,
Holiday still on the board.
If the season ended today, they would have almost 25% odds at the number one pick, because they consume a proportionate amount of the White Sox and the Athletics odds who are getting kicked out. It's not just everyone slides up; it's those odds are broken up and distributed to everyone else in the lottery. So
really,
right now it's almost 25% if the season ended today.
Wow.
Number one pick.
That's interesting. Yeah, because
it's 16 or something in the top 3.
Yeah, because this year's draft lottery will be the first one under the rules of like, hey, these teams are done. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Where are you seeing that? That's cool. I want to check that out.
I would
tankathon.com.
Yeah. I was thinking it might be those guys.
But that's how it played out this year. You had last year, the Nationals got booted out. So
that's right. So it was higher than
Rockies odds were a little. Yeah, higher than it's supposed to be on paper as the number 3 pick, or whatever.
I imagine every draft will be higher than it's advertised. I imagine every draft from now on will have probably 20%. So someone will get kicked out.
And because we're talking about the Rockies, so that's what's relevant. But it just makes me think like, okay, so 2026, they're not going to be in the draft lottery in this way. So in 2027, they reset. How crazy or how much? Well, again, we won't know how much crazy it'll be because it depends. It's dependent on the next couple seasons. But like how crazy it's going to be. There's going to be one year where a team just totally lucks into like having 33% or something wild just because of how it goes. And then the next year there'll be a team that's just awful. And no, there's 3 teams that share whatever 13%. Like. That's going to be interesting going forward.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of those weird scenarios. You can have a team that has like 40% odds pick, and if they don't get it, that fan base would probably go into a real frenzy. I know. I mean, if you think about how the Rockies were this year, the fact that they didn't end up with the number 1 pick was frustrating. That the 2 teams with the same odds bumped out, and somehow the 2 teams with almost the least likely odds end up there. that was frustrating. So I'm sure that at some point one team will have those tight odds, and it's not going to play out in their favor.
Yeah,
But
this is why you need to go over on. This is why you need to go over on YouTube so you can watch Kenneth punch a hole in the wall, thinking about, oh my God, the Rockies are going to be in the lottery in 2027 again. Oh my God, it better not be. No, he's not doing that.
So the gap between us and the Angels, which is the third worst record, it would be a 9% jump down to 14%. So that's a huge jump for us. We're 7.5 games above or below, I guess. So we do have a big gap. I do think we're going to end up with a 23%. I mean, it would take a very good second half and a very bad second half from the Angels to really not get that.
It's crazy how new this is and how like it's just all of the interesting wrinkles are just not. It's still so new. Like that's another thing. Like people might be looking at the draft and be like, wait a minute, why do the Orioles have like kind of multiple first round picks? And it was like, oh yeah, because Gunnar Henderson was Rookie of the Year, and the Diamondbacks also get that because of Corbin Carroll. Like this is still so new. So it sort of makes me think like there's someone out there that's nerdy enough, and maybe it's somebody on this call to sort of figure out like, okay, what should Rockies fans like be rooting for? Like, okay, really hope that the Angels get good in the second half, because then that will then boost the Rockies' odds of winning the lottery. Like, who are the teams to almost root for to increase the first overall pick percentage? I don't know. That's interesting.
And that might be a thought to leave our folks and us. We have this Charlie Blackmon interview that we originally scheduled earlier, but we've been having a hoot. So we're going to get that thing in there. You guys welcome to stick around, hang out on the other side of the Chuck Nasty interview.
The 20-minute interview. So a little break for you guys if you guys want to join us.
Yeah,
Noah did it. It's a great one. So there you go.
That's cool.
It is Noah's pride and joy right now, and rightfully.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and just. Yeah.
Drafted 3 times, Charlie, in the 28th round in 2004, the 20th round in 2005, and then the second round by Colorado in 2008. What was each of these experiences like, and how are they similar and different?
Different, very different. My first year in 2004 was my senior year of high school, and at that time, the draft and follow was a big thing. It is no more, but in essence, a team could draft a player and basically wait until right before the draft the next year and sign the player. So it was kind of like maybe not insurance, but it just gave you the rights to a player in case he really like developed over the next 360 days or whatever. It gave you the rights to sign him. So if a guy you think maybe is projectable and has some upside, but he's not ready for pro ball right now, you could take a late round flyer on him and come back in 6, 7, 10 months and evaluate, like, do we want to try and sign this guy? And so that's what happened to me as a senior in high school, draft and follow. It was kind of surprising. I was not ready for the pro game at that time. I ended up going to junior college, was never offered a contract. And I was a left-handed pitcher also, like tall lefty, projectable, all that. Went to junior college as a pitcher, and then the next year, 2005, 20th round by the Red Sox, I think, was very much the same type of thing. Me going to junior college is different than going to a 4-year school, because as a junior college player, you're eligible to be drafted at any time after your freshman year or sophomore year, as opposed to a 4-year university. I think you have to either be 21 or wait until after your 3rd year of school. So I was in a unique situation where I was draft eligible after my freshman year, and again, I had a great year as a left-handed pitcher at Young Harris College and was drafted by the Red Sox after that season. And again, it wasn't a draft with an intent to sign immediately. It was a draft to follow through the summer. I was going up to the Cape Cod League to pitch. I wasn't, again, ready for pro baseball, in my opinion, or I thought I was maybe at the time, but looking back, I wasn't ready. So good decision, I guess, by the Red Sox to not sign me immediately and to give me another year and see if in one more year maybe I would be ready to sign. And sure enough, in one more year I was not ready to sign, so I went to Georgia Tech.
But it's binding for that year up until where you're kind of on call basically by the teams where they make the decision if they want.
So being drafted as a draft and follow, you only have the ability to sign with that one team, right?
Okay, yeah,
So that team gives themselves and only themselves the rights to sign you up until next year's draft, basically. So I couldn't then go sign a free agent contract, or say I all of a sudden start throwing really, really hard in the summer league and striking everybody out, whatever. Like another team can't sneak in and sign that player.
That makes sense. And so mindset-wise, 2004, 2005 versus 2008, going into the drafts, how was that different? Because I'm sure in 2008 you knew.
Yeah, well, it was totally different, right? So, fast forward a couple of years, going into the 2008 season, my college career has kind of taken a few turns. I went from junior college pitcher, transferred to Georgia Tech, tried to pitch my first year, wasn't very good, was hurt, medical red shirt, and then went out and played summer ball after my third year of college and changed positions, basically just started hitting that summer, came back to Georgia Tech and had 1 year of hitting before the 2008 draft. So, kind of a whirlwind year. And honestly, at that point, I was just happy to be back on the field, right? As I got to Georgia Tech, my first year didn't play. I just wanted to play the game. Happy to get back out there. Not thinking about obviously not thinking about the draft, like just wanted to continue to be able to play baseball. Had a good year with Georgia Tech. Played against some really good competition in the ACC, right? So there were some good players, some first round picks out of that conference that year, and there was some talk of me possibly getting drafted. I certainly played well, but not really having a history of being a good player. I mean, it's just like, who's gonna take a flyer on this guy? Like, yeah, he had one good season. Like, what does that mean? Most of these other elite players who were drafted in the first round, these guys were 3-year all-conference type players who were consistently performing against one of the best of college conferences. So I didn't really expect much going into that draft. I had met with some teams. I was a little bit older, maybe a little more mature than I was as a young, pitcher, junior college player. I was starting to realize there's, like how good the game can be played, and that I was really far away from professional baseball, especially the big leagues. So I didn't read too much into it. I wasn't worried. I kind of had like a new lease on the game. Like I was able to play the game again, and that was really what I wanted the most out of my experience. I wasn't playing with intent to be drafted necessarily. I was just enjoying the game of baseball.
Yeah. Well, and it was elbow tendonitis at your freshman year at Georgia Tech. Did that ever cast some serious doubt in your mind about where can my career go, or was it more like, okay, you knew you'd be back?
No, I thought I was done. Wasn't traveling with the team, like staying at home on the weekends while the team went off and played. So, I'm up in the batting cage by myself, throwing bullpens to a net, like basically just wanting to play the game again. Baseball was basically gone. I wasn't playing. I didn't see myself magically, adding a whole bunch of velocity to my fastball. I just kind of felt like pitching has met its end. Like I was not going to continue to be able to play the game as a pitcher, and that's when I decided I need to pull out all the stops. I'm gonna try and pitch. I'm gonna try and play defense. I'm gonna try and hit, and I did all those things in the Texas Collegiate League that summer after my first year at Georgia Tech. And so I just wanted to play. I just went out to play. I told them I could do everything. just hoping to play.
Yeah.
Which really wasn't true at that time. I hadn't played a position since high school, and I still kind of hard-headed. Even that summer, I was playing pretty well, swinging the bat for the first time. I still really didn't want to let go of pitching. I thought maybe I had a future in pitching, and I was pretty hard-headed that summer. But ultimately, turns out I'm not a great pitcher.
Well, and I was going to ask, Jack Caglione, was there a point in your draft meetings where you projected, or by the time in 2008, the pitching was out of the picture, but was the injury really when you decided like pitching's off the table for you?
No, it took me a while to like get that through my head that I'm like not a good pitcher and that I could hit a little bit and I could run a little bit. Like it just took me a while to put that package together and believe that maybe there's a chance for me to continue to play baseball, which was exciting, right? Like, hey, I don't have to stop being done playing baseball.
Yeah.
Maybe I get to play, beyond this 1 year or this summer. And it became pretty apparent that it was going to be as a hitter there in 2008. Like once I started playing, I just realized like I'm competitive in the ACC as a hitter. And playing outfield, and I was never competitive as a pitcher, and so like that kind of quickly turned around for me.
Yeah,
that position change set in pretty quick in 2008.
Yeah, well, and it worked out. Rewinding back to when you're just trying to get eyeballs on who you are as a player, the NFL has pro days for exposure. How big of a part did your workouts play in getting scouts' eyes on you, and also today, social media and technology can take a player and popularize their name tenfold. How has that kind of changed from when you were a player?
So it's been a lot, like things have changed a lot since I was drafted. My draft experience, I think, was largely a result of me playing in Atlanta, a major hub for airports, and I think just like my visibility being in the city of Atlanta really helped me. We had another player who was supposed to be a pretty high pick that people were coming in to see, so I think I had a lot of like secondhand exposure.
Yeah.
Like guys coming to see them, and instead they saw me do something. And then playing in the ACC, like I said, there were a lot of first-round picks that would come through Atlanta, and if you wanted to watch the closer from Miami pitch, you could fly into Atlanta when the Hurricanes were playing Georgia Tech and pick them up on the weekend, and then you'd be out or whatever, like no big deal. So I think that really helped me. There wasn't so much of a showcase culture in my time. Now we did have a pro day. That was like the closest thing, right? So now there's all these showcases. There's a combine. There's all these things, which you could argue are good or bad for players. The one thing that I think really helped me was we did have a pro day where scouts got to come and talk to players, and I think it probably helped me a little bit to talk to some scouts. I'm not. I think it didn't hurt me to be able to talk to scouts, but I think that what helped me the most is pro day. We ran for times, and I ran a really good time, and so that's one of those things. Like speed is pretty objective. Like I can measure your speed. It's kind of hard to quantify the hit tool, and even power sometimes can be debatable, and there's a lot of subjective baseball skills that are hard to quantify. But speed is one thing that I can say, like, this is how fast he is on the stopwatch, and I think if you do that, it's easy for scouts to say, hey, look, this guy has to be in the conversation because of his speed. It's an easy fallback. Like, here is a tool that I can prove to you, even though he only has 1 year of experience hitting in the ACC, I can tell you for sure that he's above average runner. And so I think that really helped me.
Yeah, and it's with baseball drafts, it's like throwing a dart. Even the first round percentage is so low of the hit rate. It's so different from the other major sports where you can get drafted and then choose not to go, and then you can get drafted again. Like what happened with you. What is the something that you most appreciated from the 2004 and 2005 draft processes that helped you prepare for the 08 selection?
I think the maturity of feeling like I was a good pitcher and thinking that I was, and thinking like, hey, I'm great in junior college, and then wondering why the teams didn't want to sign me or try to sign me. I think I felt like there was a big disconnect, when in reality, I was playing against. There was some good junior college baseball back then, but it wasn't the ACC, it wasn't minor leagues, it wasn't the best players, it wasn't the best amateur players.
Yeah.
I don't think I understood how good the game could be played and how there's always someone better and there's always another level. I think I was immature at the time, and it took a lot for me to learn. I needed to have some failure. I needed to learn how to deal with some failure. I needed to bounce back, make my adjustments. I needed to see some better competition, and like I saw in the ACC, and realizing the game can be played at a very high level, and then also realizing that like I wasn't there yet, and that I'm not going to be there. At the time, like I wasn't there then. I still had a lot of room for improvement. I think just that growth attitude was something I didn't have when I was coming out of high school at age 17.
Okay.
And I think, by the time I was drafted after my 4th year of school in 2008, I was on my way to realizing I needed to grow and get better, and that I wasn't a finished product, and being a good player in your cross section of, okay, this one particular year of draft eligible players, like whatever, I was like pretty competitive, but there were 70 something other guys who were like considered better than me, right? So like I still had a long way to go, and that's even just like 1 year. Like, I mean, you look around now, there's guys that have been playing at the highest level for a decade, right? So it's like to compare yourself to 1 year's worth of players is really just a drop in the bucket when you're looking at like the best league in the world, and how guys can transcend 1 year and make it into a whole career. So it's just I think a bit of a maturity thing, which is hard. Like if you're a team trying to decide who do I sign, who do I draft with my first pick, second pick, it's so developmental. It's really hard to get things right. Like I don't know who's going to be the best player in the future, because amateur skills don't immediately translate like they might in football or basketball, right? You've got to evaluate baseball skills now and what they could be in the future, and who that person is, and can they develop into that future that I think they can be. And that subjective part is so hard to quantify. That's why you just never really know.
Yeah, well, and it's humbling. Like, you really discover who you are as a player beyond who you thought you were. And so for the young guys that are about to be drafted this year, or who maybe they aren't drafted this year, what's the biggest thing that you wish you knew going into the process? And it sounds like you discovered yourself as a player. And also, what advice would you give to the players who might be overlooked in this year's draft but still have the potential to succeed?
Well, I think that's a very good question. I think to the player who feels like they might have been overlooked, if you continue to play well and improve, I think it's hard or unlikely for a player that has upper level professional ability to not be found, right? If you are good enough to succeed in the big leagues, I think you'll somehow end up eventually being found, right? It might be independent league, it might be junior college, it might not be how you think it's going to be. It's not going to be like full scholarship to the big Division I that you've always wanted to go to, immediately upon high school graduation. Like, that doesn't work for everyone, but I do think eventually you will get there, right? Like Altuve, right? Like, from Venezuela, I think, and like super short. Like, there was a lot of things going against him. Hard to get into the program. He was too short. Like, whatever. But eventually he made it, because he is that player, and look where he is now, right? And you could point to Americans, domestic players, like my particular story, didn't even hit for a few years. Like eventually, if you play well enough, I think you'll get there. Someone will find you. And then to the player who maybe is that premier talent, top in your class, I think it's very important to realize that, again, you might be really good compared to all the other 18-year-olds, but it's unlikely that you're going to be really good compared to, major league average.
Yeah.
Right? Like I still think you have a long way to go. There's a lot of development that needs to happen. You might have the tools. You might be compared to some big league players. But ultimately, I don't think you're going to be a finished product until you fail, learn how to deal with failure, overcome failure, make your adjustments, and then learn how to succeed, and then learn how to motivate yourself. So I think there's 4 levels of minor league baseball for a reason, right? Like you're not seeing guys get drafted and then go to the big leagues very frequently. You're not seeing guys get drafted and go to AAA frequently. It is a developmental sport, and more than any of your physical skills, I think the way you think about the game, the way you think during the game, your mental thought processes, those are the things that need to be developed more than your speed and your swing. I think those are the things that require refining at the minor league level before you're ready to play at the big leagues.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's all I had. So I really appreciate you doing this, Charlie.
We're back. Wow. Still a little starstruck, and it wasn't even me doing the interview, but Noah did great. Great interview. A couple times I've listened to that. Noah's doing great work in Denver. Boots on the ground. We have a really funny Jake Cave thing coming up, but it's been a very good, quick 2.5 hours, Tyler. Let's kind of regroup ourselves here.
Yeah, I need the regrouping. That first 2 hours before the interview. It's intense being on here and talking the whole time, trying to pay attention to a bunch of different things. So the second, half of the first round, I guess it's not really the second half of the first round anymore, but really the second half of the night, likely going to be a little bit more chill for us. But we're still going to have everything in. I'm kind of still, I'm a little starstruck by Charlie Blackmon. Like, I don't know how Noah did that so fluently. I would have been tripping up. But also, I'm starstruck that we have Charlie Condon and the Rockies organization.
I was going to say, we also have another guest coming. Softball legend, slow pitch softball legend, Aaron McBride.
Is he here?
He's coming soon. He
Okay.
said he's coming soon. But he's, Cam Caminiti, I know.
Yeah, we were talking about
regrouping over. We're jumping right back into it. Cam Caminiti's last pick. Atlanta loves their pitching. Kind of a scary pick for the NL East. But there's been some fun picks. Hey, my guy Vance Honeycutt off the board for Baltimore Orioles. You want to go in on the Dodgers taking a prep shortstop?
Yeah, everybody kind of knew they were in on the prep market this year. I think William Schmidt, funny enough, Bill Schmidt, a lot of people thought that was the Dodgers pick. Maybe he was until sort of the last minute. The deal didn't really come together for him to sign. So they get a guy in Kellen Lindsey who it's hard to throw a Trey Turner comp there because Trey Turner came out of college a little bit polished, but it's an 80 grade speed guy with, developing skills. So Kellen Lindsey, potentially a menace to the Rockies with that speed, hit some balls to right field and have a stand-up triple. But there's a lot of raw, unpolished to Lindsey right now. So the Dodgers are going to have to do a lot of work to make that pick play out in their favor.
Yeah, there's I have a bold prediction for the next decade of baseball. I think the stealing in baseball is about to reach the golden age. I think the catching position is becoming such an offensive position that people are kind of defense is kind of being thrown to the wayside. And I think we're going to start seeing, we already see, Elly De La Cruz's, Ronald Acuna's when he's healthy. They're kind of stealing at such a rate.
Brenton Doyle.
I know we're not really on that yet, but I do think we're close to, a renaissance with the stolen base, especially with small ball. I don't know if you agree with that or what your take is on that.
Absolutely.
I think
I mean,
it's very close to like teams are going to start doing this almost like every time I think they see a guy on first.
I think there's gonna be a readjustment. I think right now things are a little bit out of whack. There's only a lot of catchers are night and day. Night being good offense, day being good defense, and there's very little overlap. There's a few guys that are two ways, but I think at some point there's going to be a recorrection. We need two-way catchers. We need more defense. But for now, you're probably going to see a handful of 40 to 50 stolen base guys every year. And you might see more 60-plus stolen base seasons, like i.e. Ronald Acuna, Ellie De La Cruz is
What
probably.
is Ellie De La Cruz at?
I think frankly, he might be pushing 40 already. I'm pretty sure he's over 30. And
bigger bases too, so it's just like,
it's going to happen a lot this year. He's at 46 already. So, there is going to be a 50 stolen base guy at least this year. He might hit 80. At his pace. So, MLB is definitely looking towards speed. Dodgers get Kellen Lindsey, moves out Dan Honeycutt. Not like he doesn't have Kellen Lindsey speed, but he's fast. Did the Rockies look to get themselves a little bit more speed at some point in this draft? I'm sure they will. It'd be nice to get someone that is fast, but also like a profiles as an MLB regular type of guy. I think usually they target speed at some point in the draft, but it's not always that high. But hey, Cole Carrig, how many stolen bases does Cole Carrig have? That is a question.
Well, we have like Braden Ward, is like Zach Veen, Cole Carrig, but I minor league stolen bases are kind of funny. We see it with Spokane. Sometimes they'll play a team and then just like abuse that catcher, and then sometimes they'll play a team and then don't steal at all. You see that a lot in the minor leagues, but I think we're gonna get close to that with the MLB. Like so many of these teams are like, I want an offensive guy, a slugger at catcher, and with that comes a downside with the defense patrolling the field. He's at 33 this season.
Yeah, 33 is a good number.
Wow. Yeah.
Other prep players joining the division. Cash Mayfield. It's a good name. It's a very good name. Cash Mayfield joins the Dodgers. Which is very good. I don't want Slade Caldwell in my division unless he is on my team.
Yeah.
No one's dropped our code word. That was the code word from our last pod. I mean, I know it was thrown in there like all crazy, but Slade Caldwell was the code word from our last draft.
Oh, he was. That was late in the pod. And I didn't remember to release it. So I had to text Aaron last night, like, hey, can you please get this out?
We need this out. So I guess some people might have had to catch up a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. We'll see. Like we're 10 picks away from the next Rockies pick. So
I mean, it is sneaking up now a little bit.
How's the board falling right now for you?
Yeah, before we jump, I want to quickly just recap the Giants. We were planning to talk more about the divisional guys. We saw them take James Tibbs out of Florida State. I think that's a good pick for them. He was someone that had gotten some top 10 hype. He is a very much a model-based team guy, like pretty good bat to ball skills, good approach, pretty good power. So the Giants might have gotten themselves a guy. But yeah, now to your point, this board it's playing out now. I think it's going to plan though, just how everyone thought it was going to. There's a lot of college pitching coming up soon. Think of Brody Brecht that we talked about. Jonathan Santucci we mentioned. Ben Hess.
We'll have a chance. There hasn't been a run on college pitchers yet, so I think there's definitely going to be a chance that we can get a high quality guy.
But I do think also this year teams are they just saw the first half of the round run hitters, and there's a lot of really good value on the offensive side of things. You still have Tommy White. Ryan Waldschmidt from Kentucky is a really good player. There's a bunch of really good catchers right now as well. Walker Janik from Sam Houston, Malcolm Moore, Caleb Lomavita, and Jacob Kozar. I would really expect those guys to start running here. Maybe even the Yankees right now. I don't know. But I think we're going to see more college bats running actually. And maybe that sets the Rockies up pretty nicely with a pick 38 college pitcher. Jonathan Santucci, again, seems like a pretty likely guy unless he finds a home earlier in the first round.
What are your thoughts on Luke Holman? I know Ryan just dropped his name there. Another LSU guy. You can't ever go wrong with a player out of LSU.
No. Good pedigree. I mean, frankly, he's not a guy I love in where the Rockies are in the second round. I think he's more of a mid-late second round guy, and I'm sure someone might pull the trigger earlier. He throws. I like the pitchability and the makeup as an actual pitcher there. The stuff, though, I wonder if he's ever going to really crack more than being a back end starter. He averages 92 with his fastball. He touches 95. Like it's a pretty weak fastball. It gets results, especially because of the location. So I don't want to knock him too much. Luke Coleman, I mean, he's a good prospect. If the Rockies got him, they get a good pitchability ground ball guy, but the ceiling certainly isn't there that is there with some of those other college pitchers in the range coming up.
And the last one, Dakota Jordan. Look, this is a guy that you want an offensive bat. This is one of the best left, and he's born in 2005, right? College guy.
I mean, yeah, I think he's one of those. Yeah, another one of those really young dudes.
03, yeah. I must say that. 05 is 18.
If it was 05, I'd be having an existential crisis right now. I mean, some of these guys tonight are born in 05 and maybe even 06. Like that is crazy.
I'm still not draft eligible. I still have 2 more years to get together. So
I'm technically still like a senior sign if I want. I'm not off the board yet. I'm not quite off the board yet. There's been older players.
20.
But yeah, Dakota Jordan. I mean, it is like the biggest boomer bust player in this draft, and I don't necessarily mean that in terms of like star or bust. I mean that in terms of like the way he plays. It is either he's going to hit a 450-foot home run, or he's going to strike out on 4 pitches.
It's Michael Solia.
Yeah, that is our next big Mike, big Coda. But Dakota Jordan, I mean, let me read off some of the numbers here. 90th percentile exit velocity of 111.4. Like that's legit 70 grade power. You could make the case for 80 grade even. But the numbers that concern you, zone contact, I'm not going to actually calculate. Like I get presented with in zone whiff rate. I usually calculate the zone contact rate, but 22.4%. In zone whiff rate, it's very high. It's definitely on the higher end. It's only going to get worse as you enter the pros. And the chase rate of 28.7%. So he's a legit like 30. You could throw a 30 on the hit tool. You could very reasonably do that. It's probably by the consensus going to get a 40 on the hit tool. Again, like a 70 with the power, and then he is fast. Potentially plays center field. So. He's definitely going to be in that Rockies range. We'll see if they pull the trigger on another bat early. That's sort of going to be the question now. But yeah, no, Dakota Jordan's certainly going to be in play. He's been mocked to the Rockies a handful of times in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, this is we start getting into, and I know you're more excited about these picks because these are more like, if you guys want to learn about these picks, Tyler's your guy. Like Tyler, like more than me, I don't know much about these picks. Maybe second, third round, I know a little bit, but once we get into like tomorrow, it's like this is where Tyler shines. Is so much data coming out. But I think this is such a weird round because there's such a large group of players that we can choose from. I feel like pick 3.
Yeah,
there was really like 5 guys, like probably even in discussion in that room. Probably this week, if they didn't have their guy in mind, there was 2 to 3 guys in discussion. I'm sure this pick is still being debated right now. On probably a group of 20 guys, probably.
I mean, the only time where it's not is like if there's a prep guy that they really like, they sort of know that deal is in place. But when you take Charlie Condon, it's a little less likely you're taking a high school player, now here at 38 or 42. But to our kind of paying attention to the draft trends and patterns now, we just saw a college pitcher go off the board, Ben Hess out of Alabama. That's a guy that early in the season. He had the legit first-round hype, and it didn't seem like he was going to get there. So I think the Yankees are going under slot with Ben Hess. I think he would have been in play for the Rockies, though, as a higher extension power pitcher. So that is a Rockies option that's off the table. We're at the point now where every guy that's taken, the Rockies are probably saying, all right, well, that's a guy gone that we would have at least been talking about.
Ben Hess, where would you rank him? Where would you rank him in terms of like the mid-round guys, like Santucci, like around those guys? Was he up there with those guys or a little behind?
I mean, it's funny because if you go on, the MLB.com list is really helpful right now for a graphic, really easy to interact with. I think they have him at 44, so they have him comfortably in that range. I think this fits his talent. I think he's definitely below Santucci, probably above Holman though, and Holman probably going to hear his name called relatively soon. The other college guy that I think belongs maybe above Hess, above Holman in the same group as Santucci is Ryan Johnson. And as well as Bryce Cunningham. I think those are the two guys that we've talked about them a good bit on our pods. We've mocked them in the 5-round mocks before. So that's where I'm starting to kind of turn my attention to Jonathan Santucci and then Ryan Johnson, Bryce Cunningham as those college pitchers. I think those guys would be above Hess, Johnson, and Cunningham. But he's a good college pitcher, and the Yankees are probably going to be able to turn a back end starter there.
Yeah, they've got a good little sneaky good developmental line, and
absolutely, yeah, they run the pitching out there like crazy
because they're never really picking in the top 10, and they always come out with some stars. Anthony Volpe, I know that was a overslot by a good amount. I think he wanted to go to Vanderbilt, Anthony Volpe, and they kind of had to pay a lot more, so he didn't go there.
Yeah.
Right now, though, I'm going to put you kind of on the spot. Who's the best player available in your mind or in Tyler's board?
I would say, we talked about him earlier. I think it's Brody Brecht. Like, there's a huge risk factor there, but man, that guy is Chase Burns. Like the stuff is as good as Chase Burns. There's no one else in the draft that's gonna bring you the same stuff. And like he walks a lot of guys, but he also I think is closer to figuring it out than some guys you're gonna see on day 2. So Brody Brecht is a guy that I am rooting for right now. I think the reason he's still here late in the first is because there is risk. I kind of I don't really believe he makes it to pick 38 though. Ultimately, we've got 11 picks, a couple good developmental pitching organizations coming up in the Phillies and the Rangers. Kind of thinking that's a spot for him. So he's probably my top guy on the board. Otherwise, maybe Walker Janik. He's a catcher that really could do it all a little bit. So I'm a fan of a profile like that always. And then there's a bunch of these prep shortstops that also we're going to hear those names pretty soon. And
I think we could go with like a corner guy too, like a Tommy White. I think of Tommy White. Even more so, like Billy Amick could probably be more of the fit. We talk about corner in this. Maybe we did just draft a third baseman. He was listed as it, so we'll give the Rockies the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they'll try him at third base. But in this system, Andy Perez, I think, will move to third base later on in his career, so I don't know if it's that bad. But I do think we need a third baseman in this system. We look at, double A, triple A, single A. Like, there's not many of those corner infielders, and we could fill that spot almost instantly if we take one of these guys here.
Yeah, we certainly have talked about that need for corner infielders. I think, though, that the Condon pick sort of like it pushes that down, the need sport. You're not drafting for need. Like if Tommy White is there, I'm sure they've thought about that. But it does make them say we probably need to turn our attention to other spots now. So I think that does lessen the odds of a Tommy White.
You do go best player available, but once you get into the second round, there's so many dudes that are like of equal skill set that you do start like really looking at, hey, how does this fit in the system? It's pitchers, can this guy fit at quarters? You got to remember, this is a team that we can reach on pitchers because we can evaluate pitchers differently. We talk about it in almost every single pod. Sean Sullivan, like everybody thought that wasn't that. People didn't really like the pick. Let's just be real. Yeah. Look at him now. One of the best pitchers in baseball, minor league baseball. So I think we do have that added almost benefit of we look at them differently than the other 29 teams.
No, absolutely. And I think they have to look at them more critically as well as differently critically. They have to really, avoid, and I don't want to say avoid risk. I don't think it's like that, but they have to like avoid just certain profiles that it's hard to explain, but they're looking for a very specific profile that I'm sure every other team finds appealing, but it fits the Rockies mold that much better. And I think that they're having to look around every corner of a pitching profile. In order to
we can't draft somebody who's got a high spin rate fastball and a high spin rate curveball as two dominant pitches. That's just not going to work at Coors. Like that's simply not going to work.
It's a little. Because you see someone like Chase Burns and he fits into that mold. Like it's like a 2,500 RPM fast RPM breaking ball. And so for that reason, his stuff would have certainly been nullified at Coors Field a little bit. But I know that, the Rockies are still going to take good players if they're there. But you do have to, swallow the pill of knowing you're not going to see them always at their best because of Coors Field.
Exactly. This is why I think second round, like Chase Dollander is Chase Dollander. Like we need a guy like that.
Yeah.
Second round though, you can afford to be a little bit more picky because I think the board is so much more wide open. Everybody here is probably the same grade player. Like 20 guys probably have the same exact grade. So you can be more picky, be more, I don't know, almost like I don't want to say like you can almost be like stupidly picky. Like, hey, I want a guy with good a guy with a good fastball, a guy with a good, something, let's just say extension is a big thing for us. And you can be super picky with that, especially in the second, third round, even later on in the draft, of course.
I mean, that's where the Rockies are going. Like, I'm sure they have this board heavily filtered where if someone is not quite fitting their itinerary, like, even if the value is great, it's sort of the value becomes lessened for us specifically. So I don't know if there's that many guys that right now in the maybe Luke Holman like is that guy. If he's a little bit lower extension, I think the Rockies will be targeting that early in the draft. If you're investing highly into a pitcher like this, I think it will be someone that fits their mold. And you did mention that the spin. There's they might take a guy that other teams don't look at the same because it's low spin rate, but that plays well at Coors Field relative to a spin demon, so to say.
Yeah, like Herman has the low spin rate fastball. So
yeah, it's kind of crazy how they had assembled it. I don't know if they'd really figured it out at that point, but they assembled a low fastball rotation. Like everyone there, it was an arsenal of low spin fastball guys.
And there is an argument. I think the not the Marlins, Mariners have this kind of debacle where they're really good at developing like a certain type of pitcher. But if 1 through 5 in your rotation are all the same, you get to playoff time, like, does that really benefit you? Because I feel like game 5, like, the other team's going to know what you're doing. They're going to be loaded up to it. They've seen that type of pitcher for 4 straight games. Do you think that's a big thing?
I mean, I think it very much is. And that's sort of why the Rockies, they need to just target unique qualities. And they might not be qualities that always play well at Coors. But, if it's not a guy that checks all their boxes, if you can at least find a really unique characteristic, which Sean Sullivan, I mean, he fit everything they wanted perfectly, but it was also outlier extension on his pitches and also from a low slot, unique profile. And I think that drove that pick almost as much as we like the individual qualities here. It's like, those are qualities you're not finding in another pitcher. So if the Rockies, I think they some other organizations from getting unique looks on pitchers and varying their looks on pitchers. I think that's something that we're going to see, in this draft. They're probably going to take some guys that are a little bit different than your typical pitcher. And eventually 3-4 years down the line, they're going to have this assembly of those types of pitchers where every single one of them, it is a different calling card that really gets you going. You think last year, Isaiah Coupe, it is a outlier ability to spin the baseball, get movement on his breaking balls. That is something that you targeted a unique trait, even if there's certain things that didn't really fit the Rockies mold. So I think that's also something that you really have to be keeping in mind, that they don't want to yet consolidate all one type of pitcher.
Yeah, I know Aaron loves the idea of having like a guy that can only pitch the away games, and I think a lot of people think I'm like joking when I bring that up. I think that's a great idea. Like having just an ace pitcher that's just like, hey man, you're gonna pitch 75% of your games on the road. You're gonna have to do something at home. You're gonna have to do some lifting there. But we're gonna have guys like Senzatella, Marquez who pitch well, of course, and we've already seen that. Maybe we even keep like a Cantrell or a Control. I can never say it right. And we have those guys be like the pitching guys at home, and we can have like 2 to 3, probably 1 or 2 guys be the away pitchers. I think, I know that's super unique, and I don't know if it would work, but I think it's worth a try with the pitching staff.
I mean, I think with off, there's usually a weekly off day. They could try to kind of manipulate the schedule a little bit. Like some guy gets a day skipped, but then another guy gets a day skipped later on. Like that's possible. I think it gets really hard though logistically to make that happen and like keep everyone's workload even. And we've talked about the offensive opposite of that, and that you should have some hitters that hit mostly on the road and then hit mostly at home. It does just get hard to manage and balance that properly. So, I mean, I guess that's really the only downside, but I think it's a reason you shouldn't be afraid of a certain type of pitcher. Like if there's a guy who's just absolute gasoline on the mound, you shouldn't shy away just because it might not work that well at Coors. Like, they still got to get through the minor league system. That's what you're chasing first and foremost, is someone that can get to the big leagues. So
I think with one guy, we have like a Garrett Cole type. I think we could let it work, but you couldn't do it. I think one guy maximum.
You wouldn't want to invest in it, and that as a style.
No.
So I guess the moral, we've talked, here a good bit about that, and hopefully it leads properly into this 38th pick. You want to stick to principles, but also everything has to just be, different. Every evaluation is unique, and you don't want to apply a blanket to everything. So there's things that you can think about, but also you have to throw away that logic sometimes and just, it's almost like there's the analytics versus vibes, like, or the eye test, of course, but it's more like analytics versus vibes. Like, sometimes you just have to go off vibes and recognize that guy is a really great pitcher. So I'm sure that early on, though, we're going to see someone that does fit that Rockies model. Is there an Aaron McBride in here, or are we just getting
stood up right now? We do have the Diamondbacks. Yeah. We have some questions before we get to the Diamondbacks.
The Diamondbacks pick is coming up. We'll answer these questions in the meantime.
Ryan with another question. Who will be the first Colorado prep player off the board?
I mean, there's two candidates, really. We talked about Trey Gregory Alford earlier. That's the most likely, but you also always have to consider the signability, whether teams know they can actually pick and sign that guy. So he might be there on day 3 because teams don't think they can sign him. The other candidate is Grant Shepardson out of Mountain Vista High School. He has a chance to go, probably not tonight, but early tomorrow. But money would be on Trey Gregory Alford. The ceiling in the draft is definitely a lot higher.
I think the longer we go, though, the less likely he gets drafted, or at least seriously drafted.
No, dude, this can't be happening right now. The D-backs pick.
Oh, no.
Dude, we comped him to Corbin Carroll, and now he goes.
Okay, Corbin Carroll sucks, so that's fine.
We have to go back, and I feel like we said, we really don't want him going to Arizona, and that's where he went. So,
well, I was worried about this pick because they have a pick for prospect calling a guy up, kind of, and 3 more picks. So they kind of had a lot of money.
Yeah, they can play around a bit.
They could have gone and played around with a guy. I don't know if it was overslot, but they could have. I mean,
that's probably. I mean, because in this range, a lot of these guys probably are around the slot. I think this is still a $3 million pick. So again, I think I've said that on the pod before. $3 million for a lot of these guys is a pretty happy number for them to get and go ahead and sign into the pros. But man, it's Corbin Carroll all over again. Corbin Carroll should have gone way higher in the draft, but people were worried about the size and all that. But it's the skill level with Carroll and now with Caldwell, there is premium talent and skill there that you're not going to find with really anyone else in this draft class. So
do we see him in Visalia this season against Fresno?
Yeah, probably. I think with a guy like that, especially a bat, you want to get him the reps. So I think pretty quickly, give it a month and a half, and we probably will see him out in Fresno or against Fresno.
High A, we still have to play him. I think they're the Hops over there. So
yeah, Hillsboro, yeah. So I mean, that's a fun thing about the minors. You see a lot of these guys kind of you get to keep up with them more because they're playing your teams. So I mean, man, that deflated me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't expecting the Rockies to take him, but there's certain guys you really don't want in your division. And
Charlie Condon's one of those guys, though. I can promise you, they were like, "Oh, I really wish they got Chase Burns." Chase Burns is a little easier. A pitcher pick is always easier to take the pill of than this guy's playing every day against me.
No, exactly. When you have a guy who can, come in and steal a bag against you every game of a series, you're gonna know his name, and you might miss a pitcher in a series. So
now they have Drew Jones, Slade Caldwell, Corbin Carroll, a lot of guys down there.
I mean, not that Alec Thomas is on their level, but they have a really athletic team that's coming through.
And we see with the Padres, where every single time the Padres got a player, it almost made no sense positionally, and they've made it work every single time. They have like 4 shortstops starting. Like,
Yeah, no, it makes sense from the athletic standpoint to try and make that happen.
We saw Tatis go to a corner, Bogart's at third, I think, or second. Arise is going to first. Like, Merrill is going to play center field mostly. Like, they've got this. I think athleticism, they've kind of got it down where it's like, hey man, if you're athletic, you can just kind of play anywhere.
Yeah, and that's, we always talk about positional value, and that's really what it comes down to most. We talked about Condon earlier. If he ends up at first base, that's not what you want, because that's like the fallback position for players. But if your fallback position is like second base or left field, that's a much better outcome than having to go play first base or something like that.
All right, I got a question for you, Tyler.
Yeah.
If you're a team and you got a good player you're selling off, and you have 2 trade offers, Cole Carrick and Slade Caldwell, which one are you taking?
I mean, because of the fact we've seen Carrick in the pros and what he's done in the pros, I think for now at least that's good process. I think to take a guy like that. I mean, the power, he's had way more power than we expected. Like, if he hadn't been hitting as many home runs and the other numbers were the same, I might go Caldwell. But we're seeing a guy who maybe is like a 15, 20 home run hitter with all the other excellent traits.
I agree. I mean, Carrick, we just talked about it. He can play anywhere, even catcher, which
that's pretty cool.
Is insane. Wayne over here, you have another question. Ryan Prager.
Yeah, let's see this Rangers pick, and then we'll get that Prager discussion. Speaking of Texas, but let's see who are we getting taken away from us now?
Let's see.
Okay, we can stomach that.
Who is it? I think you're ahead of me. Malcolm Moore. Okay, I catch you.
2 catchers and 2 picks. Yeah, this was it's a good range for that's great value at this point in the draft. Like, these were first round catchers that you're getting at the back of the first round. Apparently I thought he was going to go higher because apparently this dude killed his interviews. He's a good player, so that's a good one for Texas. But I don't know how much the Rockies would be in on catchers. So the 2 best are off the board now. I don't know if that's a demographic the Rockies would be big on trying to target, but you always have to get one really every year, and you probably want to invest like highly into one every 3 or 4 years. So, maybe this is a year the Rockies look to add another catcher. But Ryan Prager, Tim, thanks for asking about him. I mean, you said maybe not next pick. I think he's probably looking more as a 3rd or 4th round guy, because he's living in the upper 80s, touching into the low 90s, and that always is just going to have you taken with a grain of salt. But there's some pretty unique characteristics there in terms of his fastball carry. Out of the hand, the pitch, stays level a lot longer than hitters are expecting it to. And so that's going to play at the next level. Slider is very promising, as is his changeup. So he's a pretty prototypical, like, low ceiling, but also, pretty good chance to stick as a 5th starter or a long reliever in the pros. So, Ryan Prager, the Rockies may have their eye on him. I mean, they're going to have given all the college pitchers a serious look. So, I know he made a big name for himself this season with his pitch ability.
All right, Tyler, another question here. Diamondbacks back on the clock. What player pick here would be another just deflating pick?
Brody Brecht.
Okay.
And I think I kind of see that in the cards as a pick for them. I think they really went into this draft needing to add more high upside pitching, because they, like you mentioned, they have a lot of athleticism in that system, but the pitching hasn't come together as they thought it would a long time ago. They don't really have any prospects in their system that profile to impact the middle or top of a rotation. They have Yumin Lin. We saw him in that opening day spring training game. He looks like a likely back end starter, maybe a little bit less than that, though, like a swingman. They really need a high, stealing guy in their system. So I think it's going to be Brody Brecht, and be a little bit frustrating.
I do think the Rockies are going to save money. That's what that comment is. I think we always talk about the Rockies are never going to push the 100%. They're going to be at more like a 95% team. So we have 2 picks here, so we could save money 1 pick, or you could, in my eyes, I think it might be worth drastically saving money in 1 pick, but I I think kind of looking at this draft, clubs don't really work like that. They're not that aggressive with the draft. It's more like we have a range of guys, not like because in my mind it's like, hey, let's take another first round talent and let's pick 40, let's throw that pick away, kind of. But teams don't think like that, so we definitely could have two not high schoolers, college picks here.
Yeah, I mean, I think an important context is they're probably not going to be much more than like 100K over slot, if that. I don't think that Condon's getting more than like 925. Like he might want to set the record. That might have been the deal there. Is unless Travis Bazana also breaks. I think Condon wants more than Paul Skeen's 9.2. That wouldn't be too much over slot for the Rockies, so they could make that happen later in this draft. Tomorrow just really go a little bit softer with those picks and save 50K here, 25K there. I think that might be more likely, and it'd certainly be more advantageous to these two high picks they have coming up. But I just wouldn't expect them to go over slot.
Give my man Matt White some credit. He's the record.
Yeah, I don't even know what that was so weird for me. Like, because I don't know what to make of that. I guess because he probably had the ability to actually get other offers and stuff too. So
he was like made a free agent, I guess.
Yeah, which if Paul Skeens was a free agent, he would have gotten like a lot of money. So like Matt White might have actually been like kind of a whatever prospect.
But he was a top 10, but not top 5. So he was like he wasn't this.
I'm betting there was a bidding war that really pushed that number up. And the inverse in the draft, teams are like almost betting. It's a weird way of hedging the money there. And yeah, we're joined now by Luke.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, dude. I'm psyched about this. We got Condon, who's arguably the top player in the draft, and now we've got 2 potential first-round quality guys. So this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking right as you were hopping on. Condon taken maybe a tad over slot, probably right around slot though. Just what are you thinking now happens in light of that pick? Does that really alter what you can do here at 38 and 42?
I don't know if he's going to go 2 over slot, but I think the thing is the Rockies never go over slot. I mean, like last year too, they picked a high schooler. I think Yanzel Correa was picked like in the 19th round. I'd love to see a high school pick here though. There is a ton of upside, a lot of good bats, and a few arms that kind of fell. But I think most likely what I've been hearing is college arms. There's 3-4 really good SEC arms that are available. They could be solid picks for the Rockies.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm thinking too. If you had your preference, like assume the board stays as it is right now, which of those kind of arms right now is just at the top of mind?
I mean, I guess I didn't expect Brecht to fall or keep falling. I don't know if he'll get all the way, but I think if we're looking for upside, Brecht is that guy. He has the potential to be the best arm in this class. I don't know though if the Rockies have the capability to help fix his command issues. And that's kind of the thing with the guys available now. They're first-round quality talents, but they've fallen for a reason, and they usually have a flaw or two that needs fixed. I'm really liking Luke Holman and Bryce Cunningham out of LSU and Vandy. Cunningham has a fastball that tops out at 97. One of the better changeups in the draft. Kind of transitioned from the bullpen to starting rotation this year. Not too many command issues. Could be solid. And Holman, good pitchability guy. Fastball topped out at 95. Lots of strikes. Off speeds lag a bit behind. Need a bit more developing. But I think both are in play for these next couple picks.
I'm a huge fan of Cunningham, and I know he's been in at least one of our 5-round mocks. I think he checks those boxes the Rockies want, like a high extension, high power. He doesn't have kind of that spin kill changeup. Like it's more of a spin base changeup, which is not how they've typically been going after the off speed pitches. But I think otherwise, Bryce Cunningham is certainly at the top of my current board. It's also crazy though that Jonathan Santucci is still here. I mean, we have 2 of those really high-octane arms that were projected to go in the middle or late first round a couple of weeks ago or a couple months ago, and both of them are sitting here, in striking distance for Colorado.
Yeah, I think Santucci, if the Rockies can get him, that'd be great. I mean, some scouts still have him as the best left-handed college arm in the draft. I mean, It's good stuff. He was a former two-way player too at Duke. 96 mile per hour fastball from the left side. Good off speeds. Some injuries and some command issues, but overall, I think he'd be great for the system. I'll give you a sleeper name too. Arguably the most underrated college arm in the draft is Dallas Baptist right-hander Ryan Johnson. I'm a lot higher on Johnson than most of the industry is, and yeah, it kind of reminds me of in Moneyball. I don't know if with like Chad Bradshaw, but this guy's available with this. He's this funky delivery and all that, and teams are scared of that. But he turns out to be really good, and that's kind of like Johnson. It's a funky relieverish delivery, but his fastball tops out at 100, and he's got some of the best command in the class. Could be a sneaky pick.
Yeah, there's some Sean Sullivan kind of vibes there. Limited arsenal, like still needs to maybe develop further refine a third pitch, and then the fourth pitch is sort of a question mark. But in terms of little funk and good traits on the fastball, and that's what the Rockies targeted last year. So Ryan Johnson, I think that's a good name to throw out. Aaron, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
I've just been absolutely blown away by what you two have been doing for the last 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah, unfortunately we got a good break in there, but yeah, it's been a long one so far.
It's been even an hour before. I had like a power outage thing. So we were working through a lot.
I was like, this is not good. Like, Lewis had a power outage half hour before we were planning to hop on. Or no, we were on there for a bit already. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the start we wanted. But
only on the biggest night do you have to deal with some adversity. But you guys have absolutely killed it. Like you guys and Patrick and K-Dub just doing the insight. Like it's been a night. Luke, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Good to see the squad together. Yeah, your insights, your live reaction on the article. Like can't speak enough about what the BSB team's doing. Like it was nice for me to know that you guys were going to knock this out of the park and not have to worry about it. Like I mowed the lawn. I went to the beach. I went out to dinner. I had a Sunday, and I wasn't worried about it at all because you two were on the ones and twos doing your thing. I'm just
I feel like when Luke and Tyler are talking, I feel like I'm like in the wrong room because they just know.
that was a wild 5 minutes for me right there.
Yeah.
Like, all right,
that was a very good.
Awesome.
It's fantastic.
I'm glad we were able to, we'll keep that kind of vibe rolling. Like, the first half of this for us was just talking ball, like generally. And so I think for these picks, it starts to get a little bit more important talking about specific guys. And not everyone knows about those guys at this range. Like everyone knew who Charlie Condon was, but a lot of our listeners might not know who, especially Ryan Johnson. That might be an unknown name. So I'm glad we can get a lot of that discussion. And, did Stephen Cross spoil the pick for us?
He did, yeah. he's passing right now.
He's got the Twitter and the Instagram just uploading constantly, I'm sure.
I think we're a little late on it.
So get me caught up. I haven't honestly passed the big four: JJ, Condon, Jack, and Burns. Throw in Hagen Smith. I don't know much about it. So was there anything in the first round that turn some things around that might be weird for the next round, the next few days?
I wouldn't say weird. I think there's a lot of guys kind of out of position, but everybody's kind of like the top 10 or even like 15. Like the names are all kind of what you'd expect. Jack going at 6 is kind of weird, but like JJ Weatherholt was the betting favorite, minus 200 to go first. He's 7th. So some guys are just out of order, but not really, I wouldn't say crazy.
I think the craziest one of the top, and it's not that crazy in retrospect because he's one of the best hitters in the class, but Nick Kurtz getting all the way up to pick 4, the Athletics, they're probably going to be doing some crazy things on day 2 and, maybe later tonight with the savings that they're going to get from that pick. So I think that was one of the bigger shocks. Otherwise, that first round was just sort of a shuffle of a lot of the names you expected to go in those ranges. So I don't know if there's anything, Luke, that really stood out to you on that front.
Yeah, it was kind of pretty much expected. I think kind of the later 20s, there was a few high school bats that probably were underslot deals that the teams will figure out with the next couple picks. But yeah, there was nothing crazy.
Okay. I was a little disappointed Savage didn't make his way to the 38th. What was I correct in being surprised that the switch hitting or switch throwing pitcher went so early? I thought that was a little weird.
I mean, it was certainly like the top of his range, but
Okay.
he's like I've been pretty adamant that like he was a mid first rounder as a right hander alone, and then you throw in the fact that maybe he can offer a little something for you as a lefty. I think again though that 15 was probably like the highest he really could have gone, but I think he would have been gone by the mid 20s. Really, I thought Atlanta would probably scoop him up if he didn't get picked there. So. Disappointing though. We've been talking about him all draft season as a guy we'd love, but that didn't end up being
a drop. I'm stoked that he went to Seattle because like if there's anybody that's going to do something with both of those arms, I think Seattle is going to do some kind of fun work there. Like just speaking of a storyline, I see. I don't know if I agree with Brian here. This is my homerism coming out, and you guys can correct me. Brody Brecht from Iowa, absolutely not. I can't jump on board, go big red all day, every day. Jason Vincent knows. But like, I know you guys talked about Brecht as I popped in. I know he's got that big fastball. Give me a quick, Luke. Give me like a quick 30-second rundown of why you should change my mind on a rival player like Brecht, who I just don't like just because of the team he plays for.
I don't know if I can change your mind. I mean, I think most teams I'd pick him, but the Rockies, I don't know. I think it's gotten better, the pitching development, but it's still a little questionable. I mean, he's got a great fastball, really good off speed. He's pretty raw. He played football at Iowa for most of his years until last year. It's just the command. I think at worst though, he's a solid reliever, but when you're picking this high, you're hoping for some upside. And if the Rockies could fix him, it would be great, but there's the chance they can't.
Right. Like,
Could he be a Deion Sanders and help the Broncos?
What position did he play for in football? If he wasn't on the defense, I don't care. Yeah, okay, so he doesn't matter. Like, okay. They only have a good defense. There's absolutely no offense that's involved with that. So, all right. So it doesn't matter that he played football either. Okay.
But I mean, for those who wanted Chase Burns really badly, I think that's a fair consolation prize. Of you get a lot of the great things about Chase Burns, and you're lacking just some of the good things about him. So, again, if you wanted Chase Burns, Brody Brecht is a pretty good second option.
Okay, I guess I don't want Burns that bad. Isaac Stevens, you are no longer in the Larry Walker bobblehead giveaway. So I'm in charge of it. I got it right here. I got it in the box right here, ready to go. Again, if you're listening, you're one of the few on here. I got it on the Twitter. Who do you think the Rockies will choose 38th, and it was the 38th pick or the 43rd pick?
You got to get them both right to enter yourself.
It's a very high echelon here to keep it tight. Pick 34, so it's coming up. I'm looking at the draft resource that you guys got. Like, we're probably 15 minutes away from it, right? Make your predictions. Mike, you go first. I'm going Mike, Luke, Tyler. And I'm sorry, I just kind of just jumped into the hosting piece of this. Tell me just shut up if you need me to. Are they picking position player or pitching this round?
I'm going to go. Oh, do you want me to go the player or just
Just position.
Position. I'm going to go shortstop. A little high school shortstop.
Okay.
Going high school bad. Okay.
And what about 42?
Both of them?
Yeah, it's going to go quick. Yeah, let's just get all of it because we're not going to much middle time there.
I'm going to go pitcher.
Okay.
Infield. College pitcher. We got to save money if we're going with a prep shortstop.
Okay. Luke, who you got? Or what position?
I'll go college pitcher, and this is just me being hopeful, but high school bat for the second. Switching
it up. Same thing. Okay.
I want to say that if I'm trying to enter the Larry Walker giveaway though here, which I'm not, but two college pitchers is what I'm expecting them to go with here.
I got to lean just with the Rockies history. I'm leaning Tyler too. Just two college pitchers. Like you have the Palmquist and the Sullivan, like back to back. Like you have that kind of history of it, right? Like it kind of feels we didn't go pitching first pick, so we got to get it this early one, right? Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Chewbacca's not an idiot. Thank you.
They like to keep things balanced. And in that way, it's like you went with a hitter at the top of the board, especially for a team that always will have the need for pitching depth. It would make a lot of sense. But the like remove myself from Rocky's land, me would say you got to get a bat with one of these picks. If I take myself out of their shoes, that's what I think would be best. A bat with one of them.
Right.
Good old Tyson Lewis, maybe.
Tyson Lewis all day. Let's go. Give me that high school Nebraska prep. I loved hearing that name the other day on your guys' pod there. Is Tommy Tanks a real name? Is Collins Denton saying a real name here?
It is his. It's Tommy White.
Oh, it's Tommy White. Okay.
He has forever been the tank man,
dude.
Since he first stepped on the field at NC State.
Yeah,
the tanks.
He's the type of player like this is why I couldn't be a GM because I'm taking Tommy Tanks 10 out of 10.
But I got to swing it over to Luke. What prep shortstop? Like, if you could take one right now, still most of those guys have survived that first round, the early comp round. Which shortstop would you be gunning for?
Oh, that's a tough choice because there's 4 first-round quality shortstops. I won't give a full in-depth report of all of them, but Wyatt Sanford's Texas kid, he's pretty strong. Good defender at shortstop, good contact hitter. Most mock drafts and analysts had him kind of around anywhere from 30 to 35 on their board. Carter Johnson has drawn a Gunnar Henderson comps, but I don't think his ceiling's that high. But he actually has a pretty high floor for high schoolers. Then there's Tyson Lewis. I didn't think he'd be in this position right now. I was pretty sure he's going in the first round. Just really risen up draft boards. Really good, just metric name. And kind of a sleeper, another guy, kind of my gut feel guy at the draft. Oh, he didn't go, but I guess J.D. Dix, a high school shortstop, just went to the Diamondbacks. But the guy I'm thinking of, Charlie Bates, Stanford commit. He's a really good glove at shortstop, makes a lot of contact. Power's developing too, but probably a peak is 15 home run power, but has some projection remaining. I hear he's a tough sign from Stanford. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if they could get any of those shortstops, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and I think you're still kind of in range from the money perspective. It's a $2.5 million slot. If they wanted to play around a little bit and take some money from tomorrow, I think they could sweeten that deal up, and all those guys are in play for them. It sort of is going to come down to that one, if that's sort of in their plans. But I think we can all say now that would be the ideal path right now to go is get a prep shortstop. But obviously, at J.D. Dix to Arizona's not an option anymore.
When's the last time the Rockies have really done a prep infielder? I know we have Veen and Montgomery high picks, but am I missing something?
Catcher is an infield position, but that's not. I know that's not what you're asking.
It's not, but good call.
Was the last one at least early in the draft? It might have been Forrest Wall back in 20.
That's a name drop.
2017. He was a top prospect for them for a while, and then there was Rogers before that. I'm just trying to think if there was anyone else since then. It's a good question for that reason. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because it just doesn't seem up their alley. Because they usually get they've been high on the international middle infielders for a while now. You can just go down the board. You had Adrian Pinto a few years ago, all the way up to Adele Amador and stuff now. So it would be fun. The Detroit Tigers took Novelli, Dante. No, what's his name? He's from Northville.
Yori,
yeah. They took him, which I thought was a wild pick. I talked to my cousin. He played against him in high school. He's like, "Is he any good?" He's like, "No, not really." He wasn't against him. Yeah, that was. I heard them talking about that on the broadcast. I was like, "What? How is that even possible?" Just an old man.
Cleveland just went after a big prep arm.
Yeah.
Braylon Doughty. I don't know if the Rockies would really consider a prep pitcher this high. We've seen them do it now with Jackson Cox, Case Williams in 2020. They're not completely afraid of it, but I'm just not sure.
And Tyler Nevin was what? Ryan was Tyler Nevin was probably what, 2015, 16?
Well, because I guess if we're throwing the corner infielders, we had Valade and Colton Walker, Grant Levine. But it's especially this middle infield guys.
Yeah. More specific, the middle infield. Nick, like, I mean, he might be onto something. The Rockies just want to hoard all the outfield depth. Just like, hey, come find me if you want any outfielder. Like,
well, in that case, yeah, they'll take Dakota Jordan with one of these.
We got another Tommy Tanks in the chat there. 2015 was Tyler Nevin. Yeah. All right. Coming up. So all right. So Pirates just took
nervous.
Oh, it's just a draft room. I love the shirts though.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's fun. That's a good time.
If they're in Pittsburgh right now, then it's a little questionable.
I will say they showed a photo of our draft room, and it looked a lot better than it did 2 years ago.
Oh, it looked so much better.
2 years ago was.
I didn't see it. I was
learned from that.
That's good to hear though, because they got made fun of quite a bit for their draft room last year.
All right.
Pittsburgh takes a picture.
This is
that's interesting.
The pick before the Rockies, so we'll see the board here right now. The whole.
Are we all at the same timeline?
I think roughly. Have you all seen the pick?
I'm seeing.
Yeah, Sterling.
Okay, no, you're ahead. I'm seeing right now. Levi Sterling.
Can you guys
do a
immediately
5 second delay?
Yeah.
Whoever is passing doing the picks early?
Yeah.
Steven Cross.
I want to be surprised though. I want to be surprised right now.
No, he hasn't done anything in 2 hours. Okay. The minute
I guess
you guys
Passon probably isn't. It's just other people now. Yeah.
The minute you guys see
taking
the
the
pick,
night off.
just like scream it out, so I can just immediately get on it.
I follow this guy that's been pretty good on the early tweets, and he just said the Rockies. I don't know if you want me to say it or not, but
to type in
no,
chat.
not if it's not if it's verified. Yeah.
Put it in the private chat.
I want to be pleasant.
Yeah,
pleasantly
yeah,
or
private chat.
unpleasantly surprised.
If you can put it in the private chat, because that might help Mike get the graphic ready.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, do that. I won't look.
Yeah, Ryan. I was thinking that was the only one that was coming to mind too, was B-Rod in 2015. It's like I think the most recent prep high school middle infielder. I mean, Bean and Montgomery were like first timers.
John Spikerman, no way.
Man, everyone else was really quick, and now they're taking their time with the Rockies.
Like, they're probably asking the Rockies, "Are you sure you want to take him? Is that the guy you want to do?"
You sure that's not a typo?
Dan Dowd is probably ripping them apart right now.
All right, here we go. All right, you guys might already know.
Pick is in.
No.
Let's go.
Is it who you said?
Rocky switching. Brady Brax. No, get out of here. No.
That's Chase Burns. That's Chase. I'm actually pumped. I mean, you get. He says the highest upside in the draft. Like, he's only been pitching only for – this was his first year ever pitching only. That was his only athletic focus. So there's so much upside in that. I'm pumped.
Yeah. I mean, Brecht could – I mean, he won't be, but he could hop in the top 100 pretty easily if he –
Yeah.
Is he a righty?
There's a ton of potential there.
Right-handed pitcher, yep.
But yeah, I mean, early in the season, I think he was one of the top. He was like top 8 or top 9. Like, he was well within the top 10, I think, of a lot of people's lists early in the season. And a lot of, like, basically 10 guys are probably going to end up in the top 100 after the draft. So he's definitely right there from a talent perspective to jump into the top 100.
I respect it by the Rockies too. They're going big there. I think you could kind of sometimes accuse them of just kind of just playing it safe, which can be smart. But I mean, here he could be really good for the Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to shoot for the stars in some ways. So
they're not going to get it. Oh, sorry.
It's funny. No, K-Dub said that he does not trust the Rockies to get his control under, like, for them at least.
Yeah.
Like, he worries that the Rockies.
We did the actual pick yet, like on BSB.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay. Yeah, go do all your stuff. Yeah. So Brody Brecht was one of the guys. Like, when I was listening to a bunch of pods and trying to get into college baseball at the beginning of the year, was Brody Brecht's name was constantly coming up in everything. So I know he's got that upside. And all kidding aside, like, he does have the stuff. Like, if you're piping 100, like, that's always going to play. I mean, Luke, does he profile probably as a relief pitcher going forward?
No, I mean, I think they've got to let him start and stuff. But
Okay.
after a few years, yeah, I think it just depends, honestly. If they can help his command, he could be a great starter. And the Rockies aren't going to get this caliber of pitcher any way else than this. This is their only chance to get someone
Right.
who has true ace potential. But even if he's a reliever, he could be really nasty still.
Was he projected around this time? Like, did we get a steal? Are we underslot, overslot?
Most people had him first round, kind of like early 20s.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's really good value. I mean, MLB.com has him like the 21st best prospect. So it's good value overall.
Right. And they did some things with Chase Delander. So, like, there is a little bit of a short track record with, like, turning these guys into somebody, right? Like, it's just, I mean, yeah, why not? We got Sean Sullivan, we got Carson Palmquist, add Brody Brecht and to the list, like Gabe Hughes, like I don't know, like the list of potential is there, and we need 2 of them to hit. Like,
well, I think Tyler.
Like, essentially, it's what you want, right? Like,
we got Chase Burns and Charlie Condon, so look at us.
Right? Yeah, if you can't get Chase Burns, get his uglier twin brother from Iowa and Brody Brecht.
if Brody Brecht went to Nebraska, where would he be on your big board?
So, like, yeah, like he would have been number 1. Like, Charlie Condon, get out of here. Put Brody Brecht at number 3. Like we should trade up to the first spot and try to just take him there. My homerism comes out. Like, Jace Kaminska, I absolutely love that interview just because he played for Nebraska for a year. Like, it's just fun. Go Big Red. That's all we have in Nebraska. So got to stick to the roots. Got to dog on the other teams. Like Colorado Buffaloes, not for me. Iowa Hawkeyes, not for me. I do like the wave that the Hawkeyes do at the stadium. It's a good play. They are still Midwest, still nice and all that. And I'm sure Brody Brecht is a solid dude and probably relieved right there. I wonder what the conversation between him and Jace Kaminska is in Fresno in about a month. Hopefully Jace is there. But
there's a chance they do overlap like a little bit. There's a real chance of that.
All right. Like, are they throwing hands? Are they hugging it out? Like, what's going on? I don't know. but Jace isn't a Nebraska cat. He just played at Nebraska for a little bit. So the hate
for 1 year. His loyalty is a little thin.
Yeah, it's not as deep as mine.
But I want to throw this out to everybody. We can start with Luke. Where are we slotting Brecht in this list, like the Rockies list of prospects?
That's a good question.
It's a little tough on the spot, and so
yeah. I mean, first off, I'm going to say I think Condon's number 1. I would put Brecht. Oh, I don't know. At lowest 4. At lowest 4. I could, if you want to make the argument, or actually maybe 5, at lowest 5. But like, I think if you want to make the argument for top 3 after Condon and Dollander, probably could, but probably Amador as well. I'd say that 4 or 5 slot.
Hey Tyler, do you have the 2380 grades for Brecht?
Oh yeah, I forgot to send those over to you. Yeah. While I'm typing them, where do you slot him?
I'm looking at our midseason top 40 pick, our top 40 midseason thing here. We got Amador, Dollander, Sullivan, Veen, Beck, Romo. I just don't. I would put him right around the Romo, Fernandez, Palmquist. So I'm putting him like late single digits, like probably 7, 8, 9 on that list. Like Amador, Dollander, Sullivan might be. Yeah, I'm putting him at like 7 or 8, I think. And again, not just because he's from Iowa. The track record with Amador and like those guys, like we've seen Jordan Beck do his thing. Drew Romo, he's been outstanding. Like he shouldn't be in Albuquerque. Just with the track record and the love that all those guys have had in that top part, I could see Brecht falling into the 7, 8. Just because he is so raw too. Like he has that upside. I'm also different with y'all than you all. Like you have the upside. I'm more of like, where is he at right now and where would he put him? Like, where would I put him? Like, I'd probably put him at that 7, 8. I would love to see them push Condon and Brecht to like a Spokane, like just skip all the ACL and Fresno and just like, hey, go get some taste of Spokane real quick, like they did with Halverson last year, with the Goats. So that would be kind of cool. But yeah, I would put him around 7. I'm gonna put him at 7 on my list.
I think I'm probably about 5, maybe 6 also. I mean, we're gonna have to do the re-rank at some point soon. It's a little tough to put into perspective right now. I mean, everything is relative with how we're ranking guys, but I think the only ones that are for sure ahead of them are Dolander, Condon, probably Amador, and then you make the case for Beck. He's right there with Fernandez and Veen now in my eyes. So it's sort of that 5 to 7 range for me.
Yeah, and I think that would be about right. Is he a top 100? Like Luke threw that out there. Is he a top 100 cat?
I mean, probably not off the bat, but pretty quickly he could make his way up there.
He's on the edge.
He has an easier path than someone like Sean Sullivan, because Sullivan, it's like he can perform well, but people are still going to look at the velocity and all that.
Yeah,
he has a much easier climb to get into the top 100.
Yeah, it'd be sweet if he had like this skiing trajectory. Yeah, we're on the clock, fellas, so we're good. The Larry Walker giveaway is going to go to Nick Berland, not because of this comment at all, but he's been a guy with BSB, always retweeting our stuff, always liking our stuff. I think this might be the first time I've actually talked to you. So Nick, I'm going to DM you later. Get your address. You get the Larry Walker bobblehead. It will be on your way. Everybody else, maybe I'll just send you a card. If you have a card that you want, holler at your boy.
Tyler, didn't you say you'd give up your firstborn for Brody Brecht earlier?
Jared Thomas. What did you say?
Didn't you say you'd give up your firstborn for
Pick is
Brody?
in.
I don't know.
Jared Thomas.
I might have like very, very early on, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't at this point. I wouldn't retract that. But.
All right, you guys do your thing. Jared Thomas, outfielder out of Texas. Luke, I know absolutely nothing about Texas baseball. I know they're kind of on the hot seat with the A&M coach coming over. But what do we know about the left-hand hitting 21-year-old who sits about 6'2" for Jared Thomas, number 60th prospect on MLB.com? So
yeah, I had him a 66 on my board. He's only a sophomore. He's got one of the better hit tools in the draft class. Kind of a below average power tool overall. He's got some decent speed. He may end up being a first baseman. Some people have him pegged at that, but overall, I think he should be able to handle the outfield. This season, he hit 349 with 16 home runs, 18 stolen bases. I mean, there's a lot of tools there to like. Play discipline needs to shore up a bit, but there's a good amount of potential here. I think they probably got Thomas under slot as well.
Yeah, that was exactly my sentiment too. That probably the underslot guy to really help fit Charlie Condon into this class. I mean, what's interesting is he played a lot of years, so the Rockies might do what they can to get as much premium defensive value as they can out of him. But his primary position this year was first base, so it just sort of depends if they want some maybe great first base defense. That's where he slots, but otherwise, I think he has the capability to actually handle center field. But it's sort of like a just very middle of the road offensive profile. I'm not sure there's one thing that really stands out above all else. It's sort of average in some ways across the board.
So as I listen to you two talk, is he a Sterling Thompson adjacent?
His defense is better. Thompson's defense was pretty rough out of college. Thomas can play a passable left field, potentially, any of the other outfield positions as well. He's the speed for that. I don't think Thompson did, but it is a little murky on his defensive future.
Okay.
Yeah, and in some ways, I think there's a little bit less offensive polish. I mean, I think a big thing though is there's more athleticism than with Sterling Thompson. So, but not a terrible name to be kind of jumping to. Another left-handed hitter. But yeah, I think the athleticism is sort of what's going to help that profile move more.
No.
Mike hates the pick.
One typo, and it's gonna put up.
The typo. Yeah, Ryan, I don't know. Does Tulo approve? Probably
Is
not.
this-
I don't think he's a big Rockies fan right now.
Is he a Fresno day one type guy?
Yeah,
Or
probably.
not
Yeah,
day one, but
it's
like
gotta be.
in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think he probably skips over the ACL.
Gotcha. ACL ends soon too, so
Yeah, like there's
2 weeks.
not a lot of time for those guys to get there.
All right. So, I mean, those are the 3 picks today. How overall grade? What do you all giving them? Think about it. I know Luke's working on the write up there. Like, I mean, we got our guy, right? We got Condon.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of the consensus of the BSB team. It's either Condon or Birds. That's who we want. You got a Burns adjacent and Brody Brecht. You got a hit first tool guy here that can play, be a little athletic. Like, we're feeling good, right?
Overall, I think those first 2 picks really hit the mark for me. That makes me want to say A minus. The Jared Thomas pick, I mean, I think it Luke coined it. I think it's an underslot pick, and it's sort of hard to be excited about an underslot pick. So I think that probably puts me at a B plus or an A minus, somewhere in that range. Not confidently an A minus, but I after tonight do some reflection, I might to the A minus.
Yeah, and I think that's I mean, if you're even thinking about an A minus, a B plus, that's a good day, right? Luke, what are you kind of grading this first day?
Yeah, I'd say A minus too. I mean, Condon pick was out of the park. I think Brecht too. I mean, can't fault the Rockies for doing that. There's a ton of potential there. And I mean, Jared Thomas, right, may not be the craziest pick out there, but overall, I think he could be a passable platoon outfielder in the future for the Rockies. There's some intriguing offensive stuff. Fangraphs likes him, yeah. As Isaac said, he was their 48th on their board, so it's not too much of a reach.
I think something I like too is he definitely has a swing that is built to elevate the baseball and create some lift, and that's something the Rockies really should target with their bats. You look at the guys that come to Coors from other teams, and you see their ground ball rate just spike. And so if you have guys that are naturally putting the ball in the air more, that's certainly going to pay off at Coors Field. So you get a good bit of that with Jared Thomas. I think that boosts the upside.
Adds a little bit to it. Do you have the 2080 grades there from Mike? So yeah, I mean, overall, like, this is a good first day. Just it's what you want from the draft, right? Like, you're looking at some of these guys. I know you were talking about it with Patrick and K-Dub earlier about when do we possibly see Condon. Mike said next year, which was insane, but like 2026 might not be too bad off. Like, Brecht might like push his way through and do the Dollander thing, or he's gonna fight for a nod earlier than we kind of expect. And then you got some nice little just depth piece here with Tyler. So I mean, you can see a spot for each one of these 3 guys on the road, and none of them are making us go like, what the heck are they talking about? What are they doing? No Cole Carrick reactions like we had last year. That was a weird one. That we're definitely biting our tongue as we speak now, as he just dominates high A. But like, it's a good day. Like, everything kind of went kind of how we wanted, right? You got pitching depth. You got the big bopper that could easily slot into a major league roster in a year or two. And then you have somebody that can help out, like what helped that Rocktober team in 2007 so much, like with the Spillies and the Sullivans and all that. So, like, it's a good day. It's a good day.
Yeah, hey, but Jared Thomas is very young for a 21-year-old. He just turned 21 like 2 weeks ago. So I don't know how much, I was talking to Lions about this, how much stock teams put into that, but he's still very young for, even a college bat type archetype.
Right. Yeah. Like, you had the kid from Michigan who is 20 coming out of high school. And then you got a kid that's just turned 21 who already has 2 years of college under his belt. Like, roughly the same age that here we are, with 2 more years of just higher level experience, which I like the college. Like, give me the college stuff with bats way more.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with taking college guys. Like,
No.
Shoot for the stars with the high. I wish they would shoot for the stars more a little bit more often with the high scores, but you're also getting more likely big leaguers, especially in this day and age where they are scouting better. Like we've seen that the last couple of years, like they are clearly scouting better than they did in the late 2010s and maybe a little early 2020s. Like the last 2 years, they've hit on a lot of those picks, early at least. It looks like they're set to hit on some of those guys. So in this day and age, I'll take the floor and just trust that they're going to develop some big leaguers.
Yeah, sooner or later they got to have it figured out, right? Like it's got to be there soon.
Isaac raises a good point, and we mentioned that Fangraphs likes him a lot. That his frame looks like it's going to have some more power, and that could really change the kind of the perspective on him.
Yeah, going back to the Bretch pick too, Fangraphs had him ranked at 13th best on the board. So getting pretty early first round value at pick 38. Overall, that could be really good for the Rockies.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people saying, putting their pride aside and saying, oh, dang, the Rockies nailed their first 2 picks in the draft. Like they got 2 guys that going into the year. I mean, I guess Condon had to really raise his stock, but that's a pretty amazing top 2 to come away with. So in some ways, Jared Thomas, he can do whatever he wants at this point. He's going up alongside those guys, and so they're going to carry a lot of that weight.
All right.
I'm just seeing all these prep guys going off the board now.
There we go. Monday at 2:00. Yeah, we kind of talked about the prep thing as we were thinking about who the Rockies might pick. Like, this is the time to pick them, right? Like, you save a little money if they say no and they commit to somebody else and piss off Keith Law, or you get a nice little upside piece here. And the Tigers love prep guys, man.
Yeah, them and the Pirates are really going all in on prep.
Like they love the prep arms. They took Max Clark, who's just
the Tigers love
doing his thing. So it's all right.
Hey, Tal, you got those grades up yet?
I think I sent them in the chat, right?
Nope.
This guy.
I know.
Oh shoot, they were. I didn't hit send.
Classic there.
It's like it's in there, I promise.
So I mean the Rockies don't have any more picks tonight, right?
Yeah, we are all set.
Okay. And this is going it's round 2, right? So we have till round 70 or something?
Yeah, we're going. We got about 20 more picks.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
Peyton totally just went off the board. That's the guy I'd really circled for the Rockies. Fitting their extension low slot mold.
Yeah, that was a very Sean Sullivan-esque right there.
But I think we'll probably end up making it here, at least on stream, a few more picks, kind of see some of these guys that go around where the Rockies were. And then tomorrow we're hitting this thing a little bit brighter and early.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. So it says Monday at 2:00. And we got rounds, 3, 4, 5 tomorrow?
3 through 10.
3 through 10 tomorrow.
They run
it's not NFL. Yeah. And so 2:00, so give a rundown of what you guys are doing tomorrow for coverage starting at 2.
Yeah, so if Luke, if you're around, you could hop on the whole time. We're gonna at least get rounds 3 through 7. At some point, I know Rockies fans are gonna lose interest. But we'll be around at least early in the day to give quick analysis on those guys and make sure everyone's getting data, the full scouting perspective on these guys. So I mean, day 2 is arguably just as fun as day 1. I mean, you don't have as exciting of a pick as Charlie Condon, but you get a lot of that guy. I'm a huge fan of the value there. So
all right.
No, yeah, I mean the Rockies, they're going to make some good picks. I was just looking yesterday, how the guys from last year's draft class are doing. And it's still pretty early, lower levels, but pretty much everyone's killing it. It's impressive. And if they can just add another wave of players like that in this draft, systems, we're going to be good in a few years, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, more people really should go look at that draft class. I think it's the first. I mean, there's one guy through day 2 that you're kind of okay, he hasn't really found his footing yet. Otherwise, 10 of the 11 guys that they took through day 2 are all looking very, very solid right now. And yes, like you're saying, Luke, if they can do that again, the depth will be just everywhere in this system.
Just got to keep adding it. Like, that's all that you can keep hoping, and then just hit on those guys like you've been constantly saying. They figure something out, like Nicole Kerrigan, Sean Sullivan, Carson Palmquist. Like, you can go down the list of like guys that shouldn't be where they are, yet here they are being talked about and performing and outperforming all the expectations that anybody had on them. And so like there's something happening. We've got to figure out what happens after AA to the major league levels, but that's everybody's question mark. Like, you can go across the league, like all these new guys that are coming up in the majors, they're struggling as they get called up. Like, nobody's got to figure it out completely unless you're Paul Skeens, and he's just a freak. He's just an absolute freak. So it's good stuff. I love it. So we got live coverage tomorrow, day 2. I'm sure there'll be some. You're doing Luke. You're doing the live reaction too for day 2.
I think
Article?
Tyler is, right, or.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for the most, we'll kind of if you're on here, we'll kind of talk through.
Yeah,
some
cool.
of those we could trade off or something.
That works.
Wait, is Luke gonna be on? Are you gonna be on tomorrow?
Yeah, if you're free, Luke.
Yeah, I'm free. If you'll have me, I'm great with it.
Because I'm gonna be doing a lot of like the editing stuff, so I won't be able to talk that much. So I'm worried. I don't want Tyler to be the one-man show here.
Yeah, no, definitely come by, Luke.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
We'll probably rounds 3 through 7. I mean, I know I'll be there for all of them, but we'll stick around as long as we can. Bryce Cunningham just got taken by the Yankees.
Yeah.
That was certainly a Rockies fit, but yeah,
Okay.
we'll keep the live piece going tomorrow. We can keep it in the same. Luke's got the live reactions going, so people can check those out, and we're gonna, I think, just build out that same file tomorrow as we go live with those. So
Yeah, keep that thread going.
We will continue to flesh everything out and make sure that everybody has the info they need.
You won't find it anywhere else. I think we just dominated the Rockies world in this and gave you guys just absolutely killed it. And like I enjoyed listening to you guys talk about all this stuff than anybody else. It was fun. It was good. Nice work. Like, honestly, all the prep and stuff that you and Tyler and Mike put into this was fantastic, and it paid off. Like, you guys had a good night.
Yeah, no,
Nice job.
Turned out well. I mean, we're 4 hours in this thing now. It's gonna be one of those where, like, anytime we usually record a pod after the fact, like, my energy levels just stay very high for a while. So we'll see how I sleep tonight.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. We will have a pod, like not just the live stream, so you don't have to go find all the nuggets in the 4-hour stream on YouTube. We will do a pod. Did we do a day 1, day 2, and then put the day 3 on like Thursdays? Because tomorrow night.
Well, for sure. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to still strategize that all.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, we're gonna circle back on everything for sure and make sure we polished it up, tightened everything.
Brody Brecht just tweets, "Good."
Yeah, I was gonna get your guys' reaction.
I needed to like confirm that.
It's real.
That's funny. I wonder who knows what he means. I guess it's all caps though. That's important. That's an important.
Yeah, Isaac Stevens. If you're still in the chat, there is that an Iowa thing? Like, what's that mean? You got the comments on it are like, all right, he just told the rest of every single team that passed on him how they made a big mistake. Things didn't go as planned. Good. Now I go to get to improve my approach. So like, it sounds like this just might be the dog in him coming out.
Dang, Brian Sloan at 55 to the Mariners. Some of these teams are they're pounding prep players right now. Just that's been every pick. It seems like the last 10 selections. Other than we're like, it's a lot of prep players going off. The Rockies missed out on that.
I mean, speaking of preps, next year the prep class is really good, much better than this year.
I mean, this is a good range for like solid, good prep players, but
next year there's some really good talents.
that is good to hear. I mean, the Rockies will still have a pretty huge pool to spend. So,
and there is a shot the Rockies get the first pick next year, right? Like we have like a 25% shot, and that's like confirmed. Like if we continue the trajectory,
everything stays the same. And
it would be the Angels would probably be the only team in our way from getting that.
Because okay,
Us and the Marlins both are looking good.
Yeah. So Ethan Holiday,
that's the goal,
right? Yeah, that would be insane. That would be absolutely insane. Good is not an Iowa thing, BT Dub. So
he's just blowing some steam off there.
He is so like he had to tweet something, right? So he's just gonna tweet good. That's awesome. All right, he's back on my good gracious. I love it.
Dude, this second round flies by.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
Wait till tomorrow, man.
Damn, you're done.
Yeah. Tomorrow, I remember doing this last year with Tyler. It's just like insane, like how fast it goes.
I feel like it's faster tonight though than usual. This is almost like day 3 speed. Like on day 3, it's crazy. You like see one guy get picked, and you're like trying to like check your notes or go look on a website to figure something out, and the next guy's like already picked. It's like 30 seconds in between.
So fast, yeah. That's awesome. All right, fellas. You absolutely killed it again. I'm out of here. I don't know if you guys are staying on, but
I think it's a good time for us to call though. 4 hours in, I think I'm spent
with all the prep work and stuff that went before it too.
But, Luke, thank you for getting that. The live reaction piece looks solid. Everybody who has been watching should really take a good look at that. We got more stuff coming tomorrow aside from the stream even. So come back if you want to see the day 2 picks.
Yeah,
let's go, BSB.
Let's do some card giveaways. I know you got a Nadal Amador card giveaway that we can maybe do, Mike. Maybe do a retweet of one of the articles or something if I can find it. So we have some good. Let's just do giveaways and have fun tomorrow. 2:00 starts. It's got to be done before the home run derby because it'd be weird for Major League Baseball to overlap those. So
when is the home run derby?
I saw 7:00 coverage start, so probably 9.
How long is day 2 normally?
It's probably going to be like 4 hours, or
4 hours,
probably
maybe.
4 hours again.
So
it's basically like if day 2 round 2 was done 10 times or 8 times. So.
Yeah, it's gonna go quick, but it's gonna go a long time. Yeah, it's just gonna go through it. So let's enjoy your nights, fellas. Relax. Come back.
Do the outro, Aaron.
And go Brody Brechts. Woo!
Thank you for watching and listening. Please check out our link tree for more content.